Right now on Full Custom Garage, master metalman Ian Roussel transforms a 1948 Packard into a street cruising lead sled.
I want to build it and give it to my friend Tom.
Wow, I was blown away.
But Ian's goodwill comes with a price.
It's not a Merc, it's a Packard. And this roof line is bunk.
He got in deep with this project.
It's gonna get loud, man.
I think it's a lot deeper than he thought he was going to get in with this project.
Yahoo! But for Ian, one Packard just isn't enough.
I go over to Don's, and he's got his Packard. He's all amped up. It's all Packards all the time. Get them done. It's like a duel to the finish. Yeah! A lead sled is an iconic American custom car. It's a traditional type of custom build. It started with the Mercs from 49 to 51, but you see people using the same formula on all different types of cars. That's the whole thing with a lead sled, is just trying to make your car an individual. I think that's really how it all started. So this is an evolving thing. I mean, it really happened in the 50s, but people are still trying new stuff today. I've been friends with Don for quite a while, working on various projects. I keep walking by this Packard, just looking at it, imagining its potential. I want to chop this thing and make it a lead sled for my friend Tom. I talked to Don about this car. I wasn't sure if he was attached to it or not. He couldn't get rid of it fast enough. He had no use for it.
It's been sitting here for 10 years at least, and it was a parts car, so it's all yours. It's amazing how you've taken the worst of the projects and done the best with them.
It's easy to make a good car look good.
It's the beat-up ones are the challenge, aren't they?
I don't think this tire's gonna make it, man. We're gonna need the forklift.
Out of the blue, he calls me and says, hey, I've got something in mind for you. I was blown away. I've always wanted my own Ian Roussel designed car.
We've tried a few times, but really it's the financial aspect.
Being a father, being a husband, I have not always had the money.
Me being able to help him out with this is really cool. He's helped me out a bunch, so hey man, right back at you. I'm stoked. It's on. We're moving the car out. I've been looking at this thing sitting still for years. Finally, we're moving it. I get it out in the parking lot, and it's like all wrong. I was so amped up to get this thing in the shop. It's like I had blinders on, you know? I was just looking at it for what I saw as potential. Once I got in the shop, I realized there was just so much ugly, I didn't know how to handle it. I never really had the opportunity to stand back and look at it that much. It was always under that carport. Once we got it outside in the open, you could stand back and look at it, and I don't know, it really doesn't have a good line. I loved the way that the taillights in the rear section looked, but that's because it was in a carport and you couldn't stand back and look at it. In my opinion, the big sore spot in the whole car is the rear of the roof. The longer I looked at it, I really started second guessing myself. Like maybe this wasn't the car at all to start with. I've never dealt with a roof that has this ugly hump in the back. So I'm gonna take the whole skin right off of the top of the roof. I'm gonna come in right about here, and the roof attaches probably about that far above the drip rail, and I know I'm gonna shave the drip rails. So I'm gonna take this whole roof cap right off, kind of like this. You can see it's got this little shape that's stamped in it, and that's where it all went wrong, in my opinion. This was good, and then something grew out of the back of the car. I'm gonna cut it right at that line, because it's not gonna have that anymore. You can see it's almost like the engineers in the factory were setting it up for a chop. I'm just gonna start by chopping the heck out of it. No plan. I think it looks better already. The standard procedure in cutting any car's roof off is to brace up the interior. You don't want the thing to shift. You want it to stay just as it is so the doors shut properly. I'm just not doing any of that. I've done enough metal work, I've cut apart enough cars to know what I can get away with. I think I can get away with it. Cutting off the top was the right call. Now I just got to figure out the roof line. My friend Tom is a graphic artist. He's done a lot of work for me in the past with t-shirts and other designs. I took a side shot of the car with the roof on and sent it to Tom and just see what he comes up with. Maybe he's seeing something I'm not.
He sends it to me and it's pretty rough. I see where the car has potential and I try to bring it to life on the computer. When I had gotten to my final rendering of the Packard, I sent it to Ian and I didn't know how he was going to react.
Tom's fast. I get an email back the same day of this rendering, and it's pretty cool. He took the windshield and he raked it forward. I've never seen that done before. Typically, if you chop a top, you may rake the windshield back, but this one was so slanted back, he moved it forward and he put a nice slope in the rear of the roof line. Very cool design. Just standing the windshield up like that, it looked like garbage. It was ill-fitting, but Tom's design looks good. I just have to make my metalwork follow his idea. These two templates came off of a 59 Volkswagen and a 51 Henry J. So you can see that their windshield angles are even more upright than where I'm at now with this Packard window. You can see how the side rails are really projecting upwards. So I'm just trying to make it look a little bit more like a Merc or something that's a little more popular. As I tilted the windshield forward, it was causing the center of it to dip below the cowl, the skin of the body. But the main problem I'm facing is these curves are designed to have the glass at the factory angle. As I'm raising it forward, the glass is falling down. You can see the huge difference. This is about where the factory glass sat, way back. Something about fixed metal shapes. When you put them in a place they're not supposed to be, it's just unforgiving. It's kind of a hurdle to make this windshield look right. I tried a couple different options. I took a couple shims and I shimmed it up, moved the windshield around to get it sit more vertically. For now, I'm just gonna let this sit here, build out all of the structures around the side windows, that way it has strength, and then later I'll bring up this bottom lip. Setting up a chop like this without any direction is kind of dicey, so I'm just trying to feel my way through it, and that's by leading off with this windshield and figuring the rest out. The window opening now, without the rubber, showing 16, so it's probably about a 15-inch window. So I think I'm just gonna take a third out of it. I'm gonna take a 5-inch chop. I think a mellow chop is considered about 3 inches. This is a tall, ugly car. I'm just trying to help it out. I'm going for 5. Crazy thing about this Packard is the A-pillars are almost parallel as they go up. They're always kind of triangle shaped. You know, they taper towards the top of the roof. This one was straight. Now we'll see how much the mismatch is. It's negligible. So it made the chop really easy. I have my sneaking suspicions that the Packard designers probably drew the car like this, and then it got changed. Restructuring this roof skin and the frames surrounding the doors, and that's the line of the car. This is what makes it. I want to take this arch out of the rear window. The same idea as removing that big bulge that's in the back of the roof. This is a pretty risky move. I'm really taking all of the strength out of the whole side of the roof line. But I want this look, so I'm making all these pie cuts in it. It's gonna stretch out the rear portion to make it more streamlined. This is really gonna define what the car looks like, setting up these door frame surrounds. It's also a structural part of the car, So I'm just trying to use what I have, make a couple splices, and just come up with a shape that I like. My special envisioning tool. Ah, yes, the cardboard envisioning tool. It's something that you don't see a lot, but everybody's got one. Just hold it up and look through. The whole idea with this envisioning tool is like blinders on a horse, right? You just see what you need to and carry on. My job is done here. This car is getting a full new paint job. So once I got the look of the roof established, I wanted it all to be one color. So instead of painting it, I'm just gonna take all the paint off. Aside from that front driver's side fender, everything else is pretty much intact. Big problem with this car is it's crashed. The whole front fender is creamed. Don says he's got one in his yard that's a replacement, and it just might make this thing a lot easier to finish. I'm really happy with the line of these two rails coming back from the A-pillar. And the big question mark is how the roof skin fits back on. I'm liking how the sides of the car are coming out, but I'm gotta get this roof skin on. Thinking maybe the original one will work, even though I don't want to use it. I think I'm just gonna put it on there and just check it out. Once I got it back on in place, it seems like it'll fit, but it's still got issues. You know, it was designed with this big bulge in the rear, and I'm trying to get away from that. Don came over to look at the car because I think he's kind of sitting there being a naysayer.
I don't see the envision that he does, you know? His creative mind is thinking, but my mind is not that creative. He got in deep with this project. I think it's a lot deeper than he thought he was gonna get in with this project.
I'm really seeing the potential in this thing, but he's just not digging it. I got a couple tricks up my sleeve. I think it's gonna convince him. I'm gonna change the look once more. Ready?
You ready? Go for it.
This is the main part of what I don't like about the car is this weird bubble back. Help me like bring this up onto the windshield and let's see if it's working there. That is freaking gangster, man.
Right there. He's changed the body lines on that top so much. It looks like a Merc. The way the top has cut it now and laid that window back, it's just looking way cool.
Thing really is just committing to a course of action. By splitting the roof and just refiguring it a little bit, all of a sudden the line appeared. You know, and that's really cool. Don was liking it, and I think we're on a good run.
So what do you think on this here? Just trim this back piece off here? Is this how this is gonna work? And then
I think so. See the way it was all up in the air, even taller, but when you just lap it over, it like really just relaxes. I'm telling you, the designers intended this car to be chopped.
they really did, didn't they?
They were thinking ahead, and I gotta thank them for that. It's making my work a lot easier.
That fits nice, because then basically what, just a panel from here to here?
Well, see, I'll lift this up, and that makes the job even easier. See? You don't have another back window, do you?
The Boneyard does have some treasures in it, that's for sure.
This fender's seen better days. If you got a replacement, I'll change it out.
I'm pretty sure I have a replacement fender.
Cool. Maybe I'll swing by your place and pick up the fender tomorrow or something.
Sounds like a plan.
Cool, man.
All right, back to work.
Yes, sir. The roof skin fits, but it's all about refining it. It wasn't designed to be in this orientation, so there's a bulge that needs to be fixed. The whole thing about it is just metal, you know, make a couple cuts, reposition it, and problem solved. It's pretty rad. I just cut it, put it in place, and, you know, a couple little pinches and clamps, and the thing fits great. take the whole rear portion of the roof and just tack weld it back in place. It's at a totally different angle, but it seems like it's flowing. It lines up pretty darn good. The main concern for me now is what's gonna happen in here. This last part of assembling the roof really is the line of the car. It's what I've been trying to improve on. And that's the issue. You got a flat spot. You got to work around that. And that's gonna be a challenge. So it's important that I make this sheet metal flow. It's gotta fit the car right. It's gonna get loud, man. I like to work fast and loose. Bottom line. I had this idea, I've done it on a couple other things. I just use a pneumatic hammer. I just rattle it real quick, just in a circular pattern, crisscross. What it does is creates a dome. I'm right where I want to be. I got the roof line established. It's pretty much fit up, so you get a good visual representation just in time for Tom. Typical car story. I go over to Don's to get the Fender, a replacement for mine, and he's got his Packard. He's all amped up.
Really, it's been sitting there for 10 years or better that I really wanted to do something with it.
The whole time I've known Don, this car was just a big shape under a tarp in his shop. So I knew there was something special under there. And finally pulling it out, it was quite the reveal.
It is a 1950 two-door Packard fastback. And from what I understand, it's slightly a rare car.
So, now we've got some of the dust off. What exactly were you hoping to accomplish?
I would like to get it to go stop and go again.
Most of Don's projects just involve getting them mechanically sound and running them. He's all about the mechanics.
The car, all in all, is pretty much a stock car. I like to keep it that way. I lean towards that area anyway.
First off, it has no hood or fenders. It's somewhere else. So I hope Don's got all the parts.
Well, Ian, this is where the last of the treasures are hiding for this project. They've been here for eons, and you can see they're
all bleached out.
They are bleached out.
No. You wouldn't think they were for the same car. Don says the fenders are up there. They don't look like the right ones to me. They're a totally different color. I figure I'm just gonna climb up there and grab them. And then all heck breaks loose.
Oh, look at that. There's more trim under there, too.
A bird nest and an egg.
Oh, there's wasp all over the place.
I disturbed somebody's home. They've been in residence a long time.
As he's passing the fender down, he disturbs the hornet's nest that's underneath the second fender. You didn't get stung, did you?
Nope.
Okay, because I'm highly allergic to those.
Yeah, I'll get out.
And Ian was pretty quick. Ian's a big guy, but he moved pretty darn quick up to that land sea container.
My cat-like reflexes allowed me to avoid utter failure. I totally got shocked, you know? You're just moving along, doing your thing, and then, like, you know, total adrenaline rush. Here they come. Wow! Somehow I ended up on top of the shipping container with a broom in my hand. It was like, just reaction.
Don't back up too far and fall off the other edge.
There's one there on the Mustang. I got him. Right now it's self-defense. This is an angry swarm of insects coming after me, so I'm doing it pro golf style.
Whatever lives on the property, I let live on the property. I'm not into eradicating them. Oh, they're gonna be really pissed now.
Don hops up on the rack and takes care of business, and that's fine by me.
I knocked the hornet's nest out of that fender for Ian. He was still a little reluctant to get back up there to get those.
I'll just hang out up here until the air clears.
You know, we needed the parts. We couldn't have Ian stung, so that was the end of the wasp nest.
Let's bring her on in. There's another one.
From cars to bee wrangling.
We got both fenders down in the shop, so it's like on to the next. Saving the paint's my priority. The fenders are a totally different color than we want. So my first assessment is I'm just gonna take some buffing compound and see what happens.
Ian got real resourceful. He brought in that 3M rubbing compound and squirted some on the fenders and just took a rag and started polishing it.
And I put it on there and it turned blue, like the rest of the car. I was surprised. It says it's Super Duty rubbing compound. You can see I'm rubbing. It's definitely doing some super duty. Pretty easy task, you know, I got Don all inspired, collected the parts, put them together, and I just get to rub out the paint job. That's an easy day on the job.
I've spent the time when I got the car to get all the parts required for it, too.
Packard just got a really unique kind of look. The grille is this strange little center chrome piece with these massive body panels surrounding it. So it's actually a pretty easy fit up because these fenders take up a huge amount of the car. There's like 4 main parts in the whole nose. Seeing the car all mocked up like this, it's just a cool, inspirational thing. I'm ready to put the engine in. Don had this engine from who knows where. Small block Chevy, most popular engine in the world, bottom line. I don't know the history about it, but he says it's a runner.
We got the motor stuck in it, and it fit.
With some cars, you know, say if you're putting a V8 in, say, a Ford Falcon or something, or a Vega, it's a real nightmare. This car's got tons of room, no real stress.
In a short amount of time, I'm really impressed how much work got done on this car.
This is really rudimentary custom work. Any kind of custom car, you go through this stuff. I've done it a million times. So Don's gonna finish up the rest of this engine installation. Tom's coming by, so I'm gonna get back on that Packard and get back to work. Uh-oh, there goes the neighborhood. What's up, man?
Wow.
Got a car.
This is the Packard, huh?
Yeah, it wasn't like that 4 days ago, remember?
So being excited about seeing this Packard underway, I gave Ian a call and I said, hey, I gotta come down. I gotta take a look at this thing. Being that I barely sent the artwork to Ian just a matter of days ago, I'm blown away at how much he's accomplished.
I think Tom's really stoked. The roofline matches his drawing, I mean, almost to the T. So, I mean, what do you think?
I dig it. It almost makes you wonder why it wasn't built this way to begin with.
You know, that's one thing I've been saying all along.
It's very cool to see another artist take my artwork and make it even better.
And just putting it on the ground and chopping the top, he loves it.
Now that I see it here in person, I like it as a four-door.
Do you like my lowering kit so far?
What'd you do?
Well, I lowered it, right? Isn't that how you do it?
Yeah, you just took the wheels off?
That's about it.
That's one way to get it down.
Yeah. So it won't be this low, obviously. I'll have to figure out what to do with the springs. I'm thinking about just torching the springs and putting some blocks in the back.
Yeah.
So we'll see. If this thing runs, then you're kind of ready to go. We'll make the brakes work and hopefully it starts up. Don has been pretty good about that. He's pretty mechanically minded and he says it runs. He had it running a few years ago, so.
Okay, good. Be the coolest family on the boulevard, I tell you what.
He really wanted a big old chop-top lead sled. He's got it. I stopped on these roof panels. My next step is to throw them on the English wheel and get these guys tacked in. I got a way of doing things by myself, but hey, there's another body in the room. Get to work.
To be able to work with Ian today is a real special treat.
This is a really complex thing, creating a big roof for a chop-top car. The whole thing is establishing this nice roof line. I want to minimize the amount of body filler in the end. So it's really just like push it, hold it into position, and tack weld it so it stays. You know, it's the stuff you read about in magazines. So I stuck them in the car and had them hold up the sheet metal. I would have to come up with a bunch of weird contraptions to hold it in place. Here he is doing it. He was pretty excited.
Ian, in my opinion, is today's Ed Roth. Ed Roth was a wild customizer who was very innovative. Ian is just carrying that torch.
What this thing does is it sucks the metal together so it'll create a little more of a dome.
Ian likes to think outside the box, doesn't care about what anybody else thinks, and builds what he wants.
So this is gonna crown it out a little bit more, as well as take away all those hammer marks. I'm really not that familiar with an English wheel. I've only used it a couple times. Eastwood had this really simple, portable one, and it worked out pretty darn good. Pretty good. Yeah. Getting the sheet metal tacked in place, that's it. That's the car. The line of it's established. It's just a matter of finish work. If you like it, here we go. I'll put it all together and on to the next.
It's a killer chop.
We got the chop top nailed. It looks great. There's still a lot more. One of the defining factors on getting this project was that Don says it's mechanically sound, you know, it's a runner. I gotta get some electricity and some fuel to this and be sure that it's gonna go down the road. This car is ancient. It looks like an Egyptian tomb under the hood, man. Well, it gets spark. Something happened. That's a good sign. So I'm pretty surprised that this thing fired up like it did. It purrs. It's an old engine, but it runs great. We gotta pick up the dust somehow. So this roof is bondoed out for 3 full days. I got just a little over 2 gallons of Bondo on it. So I had to make the whole thing flow into one nice dome. And I think I did that. It looks pretty good. So the last part of the equation is these door frames. This is the trickiest part of the whole deal. And to sum it up is if people can't figure out where you cut it, then you succeed. Just building stuff that you haven't done before, it's just the adventure of it, you know? It's like I want to come out successful in everything I'm doing, but also the spice of it is getting that agitation of not knowing. I was so bummed out when I started this project. I can't put in words how disappointed I was at the selection I had made. But I think this thing's gonna be all right. All the body fillers set. Eastwood gave me this urethane high build primer, and I'm just gonna coat the whole car with it. 3 heavy coats, because it's a filler primer, and then I can come back and block sand it. This is the first time you really get to see what the car looks like. It's all blotchy, you know, Bondo spots, metal spots, different tones. So having it all in one color is gonna be really cool. Once I get this thing all one color, a good primer coat on it, you're really gonna see what the car looks like. And that's really what I've been looking forward to. This chop top is what makes the car. It's looking good. It's like a one-piece, one-color car now, but I gotta see it at ride height. One of the things from the start was how tall this car was, how high it was off the street. I'm looking to get a 4-inch drop out of it, easy. Everything is rusted, stuck, typical scene. Hate this part of the job. In case you're wondering how my nose got so rearranged, doing exactly this. No joke. The coil spring shot out of the car, hit me in the face. That's a big piece of metal that hit you in the face, huh? This is the old school lowering technique. Before there was all these fancy kits and airbags and yada, 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 you would cut the springs or you would heat them with a torch. Those were the options. So I'm doing it just like they would have done it back in the day. So I started off by cutting just about 2 coils off, a little bit more. It's hard to say exactly what the drop's gonna be until it's installed back in the car, because the spring rate changes, you really can't calculate it. So I'm just gonna cut both springs to match and set them in the car until it looks the way I think it should. That's what I'm talking about. It makes all the difference. It's a pretty serious family car, that's for sure. Makes me want to have a couple kids. Even though I'm on the home stretch with Tom's Packard, Don's got his Packard. He's all fired up, trying to get that finished too. So for me, right now, it's all Packards all the time. Get them done. It's like a duel to the finish.
We're getting ready to put the coolant in it and fire it up, so I'm getting pretty excited. I mean, it's getting closer and closer to be a running vehicle. Well, should we give her a try?
It's your baby, man. Looks like it's all there.
Okay, let's see what happens. It's not getting any spark.
Oh wait, it just fell out.
Ian had noticed that the hot lead going to the coil wasn't connected all the way.
Try it again, man. I'm not willing to.
You're not willing to throw him the
accept
towel
that.
yet, huh?
I just said 3 prayers.
3 prayers. Okay, let's go. Thank God that car wasn't up to operating temperature. There was a plug for the heater hose that was on the intake manifold. The clamp was not tight. Yeah. We know one thing, the water pump's working real good.
Wow.
Wow.
I'd say it runs.
It was a simple fix. Put the clamp on it, put more coolant in it, fire it up, change the t-shirt, wash the coolant off. Well, are we ready to try it again?
Yeah, I'm gonna stand over here.
You chicken. Sounds pretty good.
Well, let's put it on the ground, man. I think she's ready.
Ian was excited about pulling it out of the shop, cleaning up the mess, getting all the dirt off of it.
I like old cars. I see potential in everything. Make me want to do something really cool.
The car's been sitting for so long, to see it with a motor in it, the front end on, it running, getting the hubcaps on it. I mean, this thing is, it's there. I mean, it's ready to go. Looking at that other one really, really inspired me to get this one going.
And that's really the basis for the whole thing that I do, you know? So to see Don get charged up on the Packard that I'm doing, he's like, hey man, I got a Packard too. This thing says like stock car from the 50s. It's got that look. Maybe racing at Daytona Beach in the sand, something like that. It's a pretty good look. I'm excited to get back, finish the Packard I'm working on. There's a couple things left to attend to, and then that sucker's finished too. The last parts of every car build are really tedious, so I'm looking for some inspiration. I'm always trying to find something that's gonna take my mind off the tediousness of the finishing details. So making these taillight lenses was a perfect little diversion. This is my super improvised plastic heating device. I went on this whole bubble top adventure with my friend Victor, and I learned a lot about heating and forming plastic. Victor and I wanted to make a bubble top car, so we went about it in a way that would create this enormous plastic shape. So this is a miniature version of that. I just took this piece of a barbecue grill, put some foil on it, and then I have a propane heater. I'm gonna heat up the plastic and form it into a couple taillight lenses. I did a lot of experimenting with Victor on the bubble top, and I found out that 300 degrees is when the plexiglass starts to become formable. They make spaceships and stuff out of this, and here I am with a piece of the old refrigerator and a propane grill. My whole idea is getting this plastic really preheated well. That way it has time to go into the clamp before cooling back off. I took this piece of aluminum and put it in the roller to match the arc on this. It's just like the bubble top. It's got an air source with a base plate and some holes to let the air come through. And then there's a clamping ring that's gonna hold the plastic down to the base plate. Warm it up with the clamps and then inflate the lens through that retaining ring. Portacool sent over one of their huge shop fans to keep the temperature in this place under control. I was also able to use it to cool down the plastic lens. If it stays molten for too long, it could change shape. It's the same idea as the bubble tops, just way smaller. This thing's pretty much wrapped. I'm excited to see Tom's reaction when he sees it. There's a lot of work getting the car to a finished state. I really busted it out. I can't wait for Tom to see it. So I'm really excited for him to check it out. It's like his idea come to life. We're ready, man.
Oh,
Check it out.
oh man. You're kidding, right?
It's the real deal.
Wow. Ian, man, that is one gorgeous machine. Look at that. When I first walked in and saw the Packard, I was blown away. It's amazing looking. It's actually a lot cooler than I could imagine.
The thing about when Tom walked in, the last time he saw the car, it was a shambles. I mean, there was just loose ends everywhere.
This is a perfect color for it. Holy smokes.
Yeah, you gotta see it in the sun. It pops pretty cool. I got this black cherry paint that complements it beautifully.
First thing I noticed when I walked in is the amount of time and work that went into it. There's a lot of customizing there.
All Tom's drawings were side views, so for him to look at it and see the angle of the A, B, and C pillars, it really meant a lot to him. I made these two taillights. It didn't have any taillights. Just kind of fresh.
Those?
Yeah, I blew them out of plastic, kind of like mini bubble tops.
No, man, you're kidding, those are.
Because remember, it didn't have any lenses.
Ian tells me that he custom made these things himself, and I'm just shocked again. It's like, what can't this guy do?
The fact that this thing is a good stock runner really helps out in the end because he can enjoy it. He doesn't need to do all this other modifications. It's a complete factory stock Packard with a pretty nice chop top.
When I first sat inside the Packard, man, I couldn't help but feel, man, this is cool. I'm ready to cruise, man. And I am one cool dude because I'm cruising this thing. You want to go cruise? Hey, me and Sean Pound are cruising, man.
This was a very emotional experience. We took that car out of the carport and I was angry. I was just thinking we were going in a bad direction. I pulled through, you know? I was really thinking about quitting a lot of times. Tom's drawings helped me, and then finally seeing the metal change shape is kind of what led me to doing the finish work right.
There's one thing I've noticed about Ian. When it comes to customizing a car, is he's driven. He has something in mind, he sets a goal, and he goes for it. When we're thinking about where's the coffee, he's thinking about what do I have to do next to this car? What do I want to do next to this car? And he goes for it.
The whole deal with this is I was trying to help Tom out. He's done a ton of work for me. The least I could do is return the favor. So to really push my limits as far as the fabrication and finish work, it really is just something to say thanks to Tom.
It's really undescribable. I can't talk about how grateful I am because there's no words to express it. I mean, other than getting in there and cruising down the boulevard with a big grin on my face, there's no real way to express how just excited I am. It's a cool car and I cannot wait to show it off.
This project is a great example of what I've been doing with my career. Just trying to be creative and push something further is what I'm all about. Just trying to discover new ideas. Keep the people happy, give them what they want, on to the next.
Right now on Full Custom Garage, Master Metalman Ian Roussel gets the call to take on a far-out trike from the 70s.
I see this as real potential. He's trying to get rid of some junk, and I'm going to show him the real deal.
But this project has its own baggage.
Because I don't like trikes too much. It was just garbage, basically, that I had sitting in my backyard for I don't know how long. If anybody could change my mind, you could.
This is an ugly kit, so I'm just going to cut it apart and make something that I like.
Then on his search for parts, Ian runs into a three-wheel guru.
Everything was here. It was like an exploded view of a trike. Like 10 trikes exploded all over his shop.
If you do it up the way I know you can, it'll look great.
And with the project on the line, Ian's got to get down and make it happen.
I should have known.
I'm at my friend Kai's house. He's a total motorcycle fanatic. Says he's got some project that I might be interested in. I've been friends with Kai for almost 15 years. He's been an editor for Easy Riders forever, so I know he's got some treasure in his garage.
I said, well, come on by and I'll show it to you. I'm amazed I hadn't shown it to him all these years.
See some Harleys and stuff.
Well, it has its own special place of honor.
Huh. So I'm thinking I'm gonna walk in and go into his garage, check out some cool bikes. He makes me take a hard right turn around the camper into the back 40, and he's got something old from the 70s. All right. Looks like a piece of a Volkswagen.
Yeah. And that's pretty much all I got.
This is like a raw piece of steel. It's definitely part of a Volkswagen. It's got some weird frame attached to it. The framework was pretty rough, but what he had there was a great looking, old school fiberglass trike. Kai is a hardcore motorcycle guy. He's all about the two wheels, and that's why this trike was on the side.
There was this one deal, the guy had all kinds of junk lying around and he wanted to get rid of this trike, but he just tossed it in with whatever bike I had bought at the time, and I didn't really want it because I don't like trikes too much. Like I said, I don't know anything about it. This is not my thing, you know, so.
I'm glad it's not yours, because I feel pretty comfortable here.
Okay.
Look, it's made for me, man. It's ideal. Right, Hound? I see this as real potential. I think I'm gonna try to prove something to him. He's trying to get rid of some junk, and I'm gonna show him the real deal.
Well, yeah, take it. Get it the hell out of here, man.
Very cool, man. I will. What else do you have, though? Let me see.
All right.
I'm sure you've got an engine or something in there, right?
Probably thought there was more to it than what I had. I didn't have an engine. I didn't have a transmission. I didn't have a front end.
Well, you got the handlebars,
Right.
wiring harness.
Yep.
It's like a foot peg. What he claimed was a trike is actually 2 pieces and a little box, so it's a total basket case. This was definitely a kit. You could see the way that all these things are made. This isn't a homemade jobber, which is kind of cool.
Okay.
But they use all the Volkswagen parts mechanically.
I don't have a lot of faith in this project at all, to tell you the truth. This thing would probably sit in my corner there another 20 years if it weren't for Ian.
Yeah, I mean, it's a start. I bet I could do something with this.
Okay.
Wait, give me a couple weeks. You'll see where I'm going.
One of the things that really impressed me about Ian was one of his early videos where he used the steel cap from his boot and put it on as sort of like an air scope on the fender of the car that he had just built. That was like the final touch. And it was just so perfect, you know? I mean, how much more inventive and creative can you get?
Well, it's a great starting point, man. I'll definitely do it up.
You're most welcome to it.
I think I'm gonna change your mind about trikes when you see this.
If anybody could change my mind, you could.
All right, man. I'm gonna make it happen.
Okay.
Whoa! Watch your face. Coming in. All right. Wait a second. This frame is totally bent. That's why it was laying in the backyard. It's almost like forensic science. You know, you get the body parts to the lab and you assess them, and this thing was bent. This thing got crashed, and that's why it was disassembled, I'm sure of it. It's kind of a bummer that this thing is bent. I was hoping to just like style up the body and reassemble it, but this frame is toast. I'm gonna have to build a whole new one. Ugh, it's a long walk back from Kai's. Watch it, beast. It was just a burning question why this thing was disassembled and thrown in the backyard. That's the telltale right there. Somebody crashed it. But it's all about this fiberglass body. That's the thing. I don't know what those people were thinking back in the 70s, because this is a pretty wacky ride, all in all. But that's what I like about it. It's weird. Standing on their own, the front is one look and the rear is another look. You got this really cool, almost like a waterfall setup with multiple levels here. And then it goes right back to this strange faceted cubist thing. So it's two different styles completely. It's just gonna be a couple little changes. The first being I'm just gonna rebuild the whole motorcycle. This is an ugly kit. I've never made any claim that these were good-looking bikes, you know? So I'm just gonna cut it apart and make something that I like. I've never built one of these. I've wanted to since I was 15 years old, you know? This is like one of those must-do things. I was actually getting some flack from a couple friends because they said, oh, you said you'd never build the same thing twice. But I built another trike. It's a forward engine. The axle's behind it. It was a motorcycle engine. This is a completely different take on a three-wheel vehicle. It's like saying I already built a car before because it has 4 tires. Mechanically, it's all Volkswagen. I'm gonna need a motorcycle front rim and front forks. And I have ideas about all of it. It's just a matter of getting this frame figured out. Yeah. It's just small. I didn't realize they were this small. Or maybe I didn't realize I was this big. You see pictures of guys on them and they just look like, yeah, you know. But my legs are almost as long as the thing. So the handlebars are right here. It's like a little mini bike. I want my arms like this. Well, fortunately, the frame is trash. So all I gotta do is cut the frame off and I'll just make a new frame. Pretty simple. Yeah. Let's get to it. I thought there was something too heavy with this whole chassis. They filled this with lead to weight it down, I'm sure. I'm not gonna fill my frame with lead. I gotta come up with something better. So that means you need some weight on the front. I think I'm gonna have to build a very heavy chassis, which is cool. I'll make a cool tube chassis and just try to keep the weight as forward as possible, probably with an 8-inch stretch from where it was. So I'm just gonna cut this fiberglass body in half again, set the back on, and just see where the nose ends up. I'll put it 8 inches away from where it was and see how it looks. We're gonna do a little milk crate mock-up. Hey, look, this has been done by all the great builders throughout time. See, now there's a little more room. Handlebars here. It'll be easy to do. It'll also help a little more weight, more forward, center of gravity, etc. I'm gonna be stuck on this frame if I don't have the proper fork dimensions. The tire diameter is very critical, and then of course all the pieces that hold that stuff in place. A word on the street is that this guy Rich up north, he has all the Trike stuff. He might have all the parts I need. Up here in Fraser Park, California, I was referred to this fella Rich from a friend of mine. Apparently he's the go-to guy for trikes.
I didn't get into trikes in 1984. I thought riding trikes, that's for sissies, you know, that's for people that can't hold up bikes. And at that time, I was still riding the big Harleys and the Gold Wings. I went out and bought a brand new Gold Wing, but I ended up 10 years later making it into a trike.
Walking into Rich's place, I see these two Trikes. I mean, they're nice. They look like they're from the 70s. It's pretty cool stuff. Whoa, what's with the frame on this? This is crazy.
Everything is hand-built.
The frame is what I was thinking about designing. This guy's obviously done this before. He knows this stuff. He's taken the VW engine and transaxle and made a custom suspension in the rear, which I think is really trick.
When he called, I didn't know if the things that I had would meet his expectations because I know he's a good builder.
He had seen the Honda Goldwing Trike that I built, which was pretty unique. It was a very simple design, and he was digging it.
I liked the trike he built because of the way he built it, not because he built the trike.
Well, I know you said you had a couple projects. I was really seeing if you had some forks or a front rim, because that's kind of...
Yeah, well, we can go back there and take a look and see what we have.
All right,
maybe there's something that'll help you out with yours.
Yeah, for sure. I see the first Trike out in his yard, and it just looks like we might be in junk zone. But you get into his workshop, and you see he is a full-on machinist. He's making gearboxes, he's making engine couplers, all kinds of really cool stuff. So really, everything was here. It was like 10 Trikes exploded all over his shop. You see this big fiberglass shape. I know exactly what it is. I've already got one. It's a different body style than the one I have, but seeing it without the body on really helped out. The Trike chassis is sitting here in the corner, so it really gives me a good idea of what they look like when they're fully assembled. I was able to really check out the mechanical linkages on how to make it shift, the throttle, the brakes, that type of thing. We're speaking the same language, but we're coming from opposite sides of the spectrum. And he's coming from the machining and engineering standpoint, and I know the fabrication, you know? I got an artistic view, and it's just cool. This is the kind of guy I need in my stable. What's with this keg?
Oh, you want that beer keg? You have to bring one full of beer, though, for it, and then help me drink it.
This is the old school thing, man. You put it right here. That's the deal. This guy is the real deal. He's been in it. He knows the people.
Believe it or not, I had a stack of napkins. Ed Roth had diagrammed on there, and they came up, and Richard Pye was going to build them. Ed Roth was going to design them and promote them for Benihana, and what they were going to be delivery trucks. But what they were going to do is do a single-seater, and it was going to have an oven on the back to keep the deliveries hot, and the whole top of the Trike was going to be a Chinese hat. And they were going to use just regular motorcycle front ends, and he had the idea how to strengthen them, and I wish I had those here to show you because they're unreal, some of the things. And that's where I came up with a lot of the ideas I have here of how they should be if they're into a little Trike.
My fiberglass body is like a big shell that comes out, so the Springer stuff would be lost in there.
Hold on just a second, let me see something.
This guy's got everything I need. It's really just like, hey, will this work? Will that work? You know, he's been doing this since before I was born, which is pretty cool. So that's the thing. Right now, this is like school. This is the big theory session. He knows what works, and I got to figure out how to make it. He goes back into the shed and pulls out this old Springer fork that's all disassembled, a bunch of shocks, you know, and starts talking theory. You know, he's got some ideas about the angle of these rocker arms that hold the tire, etc. And I think I'm gonna build them. I think it would really be a good nod of respect to build this guy's design.
you do it up the way I know you can, it'll look bitchin'.
He just gave them to me. That's pretty cool.
Okay.
That's perfect, man.
Sweet.
The advice is much needed.
Yeah. I've had a good day with him here. I've learned a lot from him.
This is perfect. This is exactly what I needed. I had a couple questions. He answered them, so it's like on.
He doesn't never have to be a triker, but he'll build something that appeals to people, and that's what counts.
Well, one thing Rich told me about was the rake of the fork, you know, the inclination of the fork tubes. He's talking about his headset being at 58 degrees, so that's where I'm really starting off the whole thing. I set up this jig here. All this is gonna do is put that same diameter tube at a 58-degree inclination. I don't know what that means technically, but that's what the old man told me to do. He's been doing trikes for years, so I'm not gonna reinvent anything. For lack of a better term, this is more of a traditional build. You know, these trikes were happening in the 70s as kits. So just like the hot rodders were all building their cars for the purpose of speed, these things were all built with some kind of weird style in mind. And that's all I'm trying to do with this. So the only thing that's gonna determine the arc in these tubes is the shape of the fiberglass body. I'm gonna use 1.5 DOM. It's 1/8 wall tube. It's roll cage stuff. And I'm gonna come forward with 4 tubes, almost like a truss. They're gonna come forward and curve up below the fiberglass body. The old frame was a really basic shape. It was a rectangle tube with a gusset in it, and no wonder it bent. My challenge is to create a metal structure that's cool looking and super strong. Now I'm gonna try to one-up this design by making it look a little cooler and way stronger. I'm gonna use 1.5 round tube, DOM, it's roll cage material. I'm gonna curve it so that it follows a nice graceful arc, just like the neck of this fiberglass body. And I'm gonna make 4 tubes, kind of like a teepee on its side that goes right up to the headset. Massive curved tube steel structure. Just to fit these up real quick, I'm gonna tack it in place. You could build this thing out of a giant piece of I-beam, and it would be incredibly strong. It is form over function, I think. I want it to look cool, but incorporating a great strength factor in it. That's why using these 4 tubes, it's a pretty delicate, graceful looking design, but it's super strong. It's like the works of nature, you know? You look at your skeleton, it's a pretty cool thing without the skin, you know? Everything should follow suit, right? So even though this is underneath this fiberglass body, it should still be something cool looking. So your forks are pivoting on the center arc, so they won't steer very far. See that? So that's there, you only have that much steering. So I gotta bring them in. Now it'll steer, see? Before the tubes are so wide that these things wouldn't turn, but now it's fine. This piece is gonna get cut back out. My whole concept is just fitting these tubes up to it. That's why I'm only gonna spot weld everything. I'm gonna make 2 more lower tubes the same way as I did the upper ones. Put it through the roller, trim them back. That's next. I'm building my own custom thing, and that's really what it's about. You know, everybody's got their idea. I see pieces of this machine that I don't like, so they're going away. No regrets. I think I'm just gonna come vertically with 2 round tubes and just some kind of an angle iron straight across. That's the whole deal. It pops right back on like it used to. The thing is, you need all the stuff. You know, I got a good start on it, but you can't commit to anything design-wise until you have all the other elements. So I still got to get rear tires, an engine, and transaxle. We're at the Pomona Swap Meet, the granddaddy of them all. If you need it, it's here. There's a couple things that I'm looking for. I haven't been able to find them online. All I have to do is walk 5,000 miles today and pick up what I need. Pomona Swap Meet is such a blowout. It's still the biggest swap meet I've ever seen. I mean, it has everything you could ever want. I'm seeing exactly what I expected, 10 billion parts. There's a huge resource of Volkswagen stuff. There's rims and tires all over the place. It's just a matter of picking what I want. Perfect case scenario is a low-priced Volkswagen engine. You know, it's just gotta be a runner. If it needs some work, that's fine, but I'm not looking to spend a fortune. Hey, what do you want to get for this engine?
What do you need it for?
It's for this crazy Volkswagen project. Sure enough, this guy is a regular at the swap meet. He's into VWs, and he's got an engine here. It's a 1600 single port, and he's right in my price range. He's asking for $650 for it, and I guess it's all good used parts. I'll do 6 1/4. That sounds fair. But you got to give me the cart with it, because I'm not carrying it home.
The cart goes with it.
All right, cool. I'm on a good roll. If I can find a set of tires and a couple rims, my day's done. It's early. I'd like to get out of the sun before it gets too hot. It's exactly what I'm looking for. 29 by 15, 50 by 15s. Those will look perfect. Score. On to the next. There's this guy who's at every Pomona swap meet. He specializes in vintage rims. So sure enough, he's here. These are typical 1970s slotted mag rims. You see them on every kind of vehicle done in the 70s for sure. Here we go. I didn't come out here for recreation, you know? I'm on a shopping mission. So I got the engine, I got the tires, the rims. I'm feeling pretty good about it. The transaxle is kind of a touchy thing. They're expensive for good ones, so I'm gonna talk to my friends, see if I can't just get a used one that'll work. Been drilling all kinds of pieces of metal. All I got from Rich was this fork set, these 2 shocks, and the front tire. So I need to get bolts, bearings, bushings, metal plates, lock washers, the whole deal. The big challenge is to make this whole assembly look good and operate properly. And it's really custom tailored for this bike. Rich's whole take on this front fork was that the Springer forks would be lost up in this big fiberglass body. You wouldn't see them. So he said, put the springs down low. You'll see the whole setup right next to the rim. He thought it was a perfect complement for this fiberglass nose, and I agree. This is what I was expecting with the Trike. There's a lot of mechanical stuff that is pretty important, like the alignment of the front tire, the function of the springs on the forks, the pivoting of all the controls. If the forks fail, you fail. Especially if the controls fail, there's trouble. What I'm thinking is if we set this at 58 degrees, like you recommended, then we should be able to just tack weld this stuff in place. Setting up the rake is very important because the old dude says that's what's up. So I'm paying a lot of attention to make sure that it's to his specs. Pretty sneaky. This is all the gear for the headset. Yesterday at the machine shop, we blueprinted this pretty much and set up these holes so that they match what the existing lower bracket has. So just for simplicity, I'm gonna commit to this. See, I bored that center out yesterday, so a 1-inch will fit right through there. For me, the first step is this upper plate. See how it'll go on here? That, and then the bolts will go inside like that. See, that's the setup. But I don't want a big plate on top of the forks. That looks funny. So I don't think I need to tell you that. I'm gonna trace out a shape around these bolts, trim this plate back, and then trim the fork legs. So you may be asking yourself, did he just cut that with a wood saw? Yeah, It's a carbide tipped saw you would use for wood. They go through aluminum. It's not the most optimal thing to cut aluminum with. You'll see it loaded up a little bit on the tips, but with a brand new blade, it goes pretty quick. That's 5/8 aluminum. I'm gonna put these in place just to hold them. I'm gonna weld the sides in first, and I can take the plate off and weld the top. Goes through there. Followed the old dude's lead, and you know, he's done this before. All I had to do was make it my own. My job is done. 58 degrees to freedom. It's gonna be awesome. Need a VW transaxle. Don says, hey man, I got something, it used to work, it's been sitting for years and I don't want it. So no matter what condition, if he says that it's gonna turn all the gears, then I'm cool with it. It is ugly, but I got some degreaser and a seal kit, I'll make it happen. Just thinking about what these tires are gonna look like on here, you know? I'm all about putting this thing together right now. This is the look I wanted, you know? 70s slotted mags, Mickey Thompson Sportsman tires. That's the look, man. This is a 70s machine. Took about a foot out of the fork legs. Spur of the moment decision. It caught my eye. I couldn't stop thinking about it. It was just too long. But these handlebars are too small. They came out of that hole like that, so the forks are in the right spot. But see, they just look a little too dinky. I'm thinking about like a tube straight across this way and then 2 arches going right down into the headset. So I feel like the whole flavor of this bike is just gonna be curved tubes. The idea of building these bars kind of mimics my whole process. You know, I didn't have a definite end to this. You know, I had a couple ideas. Mainly that pullback, that sweeping bend coming off the headset, and then the top bar was really up in the air. It's really just put the pieces in place and see what looks and feels right. I think I could live with that. That's, I don't want it to be too curved because it's gonna look droopy, you know? That works for me. The base design of this was like a beach cruiser style, you know? They weren't like high ape hangers or super low drag bars. I just wanted a nice, comfortable, middle of the road seating position, you know, with your hands right around your shoulder height. Some people can sketch it out, but I just take the metal and bend it around and hold it in place and just see what seems right. This is kind of interesting. If I splice them together like that, that's pretty space age. I had about 4 different ideas in 20 minutes, and something happened. I ended up with handlebars. This thing's getting close. It's looking like a Trike. So I'm excited to have Kai check it out because now you get a real sense of what it's gonna be.
Ian called me up early today and told me to come over and check it out. He had done a few things to it. Whoa! What the hell?
Made a couple changes, sir.
No kidding. Man. What did you do to this thing?
Well, I started by just making a new frame.
This is not anything like I saw.
No, it was bent. Somebody crashed it. That's the problem. I put it on the table and measured it.
Really?
So that must have been why they took it apart, because that cheesy little frame, I have it over here, was full of lead.
It's pretty amazing. I mean, he got rid of the whole front end, the whole front part of the frame and created a whole new frame. The whole thing just looks nothing like I expected at all. This is crazy, man.
Crazy?
It doesn't look anything like I remember it.
See, this is what was there.
Yeah, right.
They filled it full of lead, but it was bent over like it got hit on the left side.
So that's why it was so heavy, huh?
Yeah, that's why
I was wondering about that.
But yeah, I just bent up some 1.5-inch tube, and I'm just working on the handlebars now.
Yeah, you didn't even use the ones that that I had.
They were just too small, so I loved the general shape of them. But, you know, I was trying, with the nice curved frame, I was trying to get a nice curved bar. I think Kai was pretty quietly impressed.
I wouldn't mind riding this. Or at least try it out.
I think him walking in the door was the turning point. You know, he was all biased, had his own opinions. As soon as you walk in, you check it out, and you sit on the thing, I think he's gonna go for it. I think he's totally into this.
It's pretty amazing. But leave it to Ian, he comes up with this stuff, and I see total potential for this thing now. And personally, I can't wait to see it finished. I should have known.
Trying to get some floorboards made for this. I was thinking, this thing needs a little more weight in the front, and especially safety-wise. I was originally thinking like your feet would just hang down on some foot pegs, but seeing how light this thing is in the nose, I think putting a full tray, like a skid plate underneath that incorporates as a footrest too. That's pretty funky. That's what I'm looking for. I saw a really good design on Rich's Trike where there was no hand throttle, everything was controlled by your foot. I thought it looked really clean. I'm not gonna copy his design directly, but it's definitely the inspiration for this. Typical motorcycle arrangement, you have your throttle on your hand grip, your clutch on your left hand, and your brake, your front brake on your right. I'm gonna try to make these bars super clean by using all foot controls. I had these old excavation stakes, the big hunk of steel, but it had pretty neat, evenly drilled holes in it. So I just picked one hole, enlarged it to fit these tubes. I had the old shifter lever from the Trike, so that fit as a sleeve. I'm gonna use it as a bearing on this center one. And I just drilled these out to fit, so they will actuate a little flipper lever. That's the brake side on your right foot. And then this is the clutch side on your left foot. So they look fairly symmetrical. The really trick thing in Rich's Trike was that he had a foot gas pedal, which I thought was super cool because your hands are free to just hold on. So I took this 3/8 rod I bought, and that fits right through the tube on the brake pedal. So this will have a third component that will be some kind of a lever here that as you turn it, this will have the throttle pedal. So you'll have a gas pedal outside of here, independent of your brake. I wanted it as compact, lightweight, and cool looking as possible, and it's all old stuff. This component is going to be welded shut. It's a one-time deal, and the only way to test it is to put it on the bike. So, stepping on the clutch, oh yeah, it's totally easy. It works. Well, I'm pretty familiar with linkages from, you know, everything, you name it, dune buggies to motorcycles. So this is a pretty straightforward concept, but since I'm building it myself, there's a million variables. I'm just working with what fits closest to this design in my head. So it's just like a bunch of scrap metal, put on the table and make some linkages. I was thinking about welding another lever to this shaft, similar to what I did here, but there's not a lot of pressure on the throttle assembly, so I think I could just bend this 90 degrees, just bend this rod straight up and then over. So I saw this trick on Volkswagens. They were using roller pedals on their race cars, and I've seen a couple other people use skateboard wheels. So I think it's time to retire this unit. My days of small board riding are over. I think the skateboard gas pedal is perfect. I'm gonna do the same with the brake and the clutch. Okay. It actually works. Next up, fuel tank. Thanks to Mr. Trike up there, we got this cool stainless steel tank. And the only spot for it I can think of is here where the old one used to go. Basically gonna cut this thing in half. All right, so this thing's gonna go in the vehicle right about here. I'm glad that this works out. For me, the big concern at this point is just the body. It's in 2 pieces. I want it in 1 piece. All right, I really got this chassis dialed in. Went off on the rear end of it. I got everything buttoned up, cleaned and painted. Gas tank's in, the transmission's resealed, the foot pedals are all hooked up. Last thing to do is get this body into 1 piece. Got my friend Jack, he's a great upholsterer. He gave me the tip on how to make some seat pans that would help him just move right through this. I'm gonna make a couple templates, cut steel to match, and just deliver them to Jack. The seats are in his hands, whatever he wants to do. He knows what I'm up to. Simple, typical template making. You know, I've got my fiberglass body. I just make a cardboard template on it until it's the shape I'm happy with. You know, it's easier to cut than metal. So you whittle down the cardboard to the final shape, transfer that shape to the metal, cut it and deliver it. You know, I don't think I could have made that any better myself. It's all right. The last part of the operation is this fiberglass repair. Without it, it would look like the body's in 2 pieces, and it's really just a cosmetic thing. Got all this fiberglass from 3M, and it's time to use it. It's a messy operation, but somebody's got to do it. The fiberglass thing is just a cosmetic deal. I've got plenty of body mounts in place. I just need a smooth surface that I can paint. So yeah, I'm just gonna lay this on, and then I'll cut back. Later, I'll cut back whatever I don't need, but at least it's in place. I like the process in that you can create these complex shapes pretty simply, but it's a stinky, itchy process. You know, it's hot weather, and it's kind of miserable. You know, I like the results, but the process is pretty gnarly. I got all this Elastirap product from Eastwood. It's pretty crazy stuff. It's a liquid rubber coating that you can spray with a paint gun. So it's a sprayable rubber coating that is either permanent, or if you prep the surface correctly, you can peel it off. I think it's gonna be perfect for this trike. I'm setting up a whole series of tape lines that are gonna accent these ridges in the body. I really like the last graphics that were on it, but these new ones I think are really gonna help out the design that whoever created this fiberglass shape. I think it's gonna really complement that. I sprayed the whole thing silver, and just like most of the work I do, I stared at it. Something you would see, you know, in the 60s or 70s before all these special candy paints and all the airbrushing fad got so developed. So that last line comes down like that. And that's there, and yeah, we got it. All right, it's the moment of truth. My big concern was that this stuff would all glue together. Oh, look at that. Perfect parting line. I was worried that it was going to stretch, create rough edges. Quality control. Here he is. What do you think, man? You know, I'm pretty happy with this. It would have been easy to overdo it, so I spent a lot of effort to underdo it. I think it's paid off. Everything here is what I was thinking. The tones are right on. I think if I clear coat the whole thing with this really fine metal flake, it's just gonna give a little pop in the sunlight. And that's it. I think this is pretty classy. It's not overblown. It shows off the body lines. And it's full custom. I got the trike all squared away, got it registered, took it on the shakedown run. The whole thing was figuring out how to ride this. you don't lean into it like a motorcycle. So before I got on the road, I took it out to the park, did a couple wheelies, a couple slides in the dirt just to see how it felt, how stable it was. And this thing tracks great. The whole thing is that this was purely inspired by other people. There was no check and balance like on other projects. So having the freedom to just do whatever I want, it's really cool. I drove it up here to Rich's in Fraser Park. I felt it was so important to bring it back here and show them, hey man, that you turned me in this direction, and here it is.
To see him come riding in the front driveway with it, it was fabulous.
Pulling up, I could see Rich's face, you know, he was excited.
That front end is terrific.
Those are the forks I got from you.
Look at that.
I made them. These are the
Yeah.
shocks, the front rim I got from you.
I didn't know I was inspiring him that great. It was fabulous. It looked great. He did the shocks the way I had told him, and then he improved on them by doing the gooseneck the way he did. The hidden frame is marvelous. That's a great idea on that part. I could sell that idea every day of the week. That's a good unit.
The way I chopped the body back and the modifications I made, he was into it.
That's beautiful.
Well, thanks, man. That was the first time
Hey,
I ever put one of these together. Thanks.
You're a triker.
There we go. We've got a couple old school trikes, new school trike, and Kai has got a brand new Harley trike. He's got it from the factory, fresh, and he's bringing it up here today to roll out with us.
I do test rides for Easy Riders and for another magazine we have called Road Iron. And I happened to get a trike for the first time ever. And the trike is great. It's called a freewheeler. It's brand new for 2015.
Kai was a naysayer to the trike thing, and now here he is. He's driving 80 miles out on his new trike just to check out the scene. You know, it's a great day. We're gonna go for a cruise.
It was fun to watch the trike in action. It was just pieces and parts and, you know, garbage basically that I had sitting in my backyard for I don't know how long, and he made this out of it, and it's pretty wild.
What he's done to it is really great. I want to do something with him.
Rich has got projects all over the place. He's got dune buggies, he's got tractors, trailers, trikes, motorcycles. I got a bunch of crazy ideas. This is just the tip of the iceberg.
Right now on Full Custom Garage, Master Metalman Ian Roussel transforms a 1923 C Cab into a vintage-style tow truck.
It's Don's pile of parts.
It is absolutely a basket case. There's stuff from the 40s, there's stuff from the 30s, there's stuff from the 20s.
But Ian's client isn't your average car collector.
Oh, hell yeah, I'm a hoarder. Well, if I wasn't such a pack rat, I wouldn't have all this stuff.
You got your hoarder mentality, and then you got your artist mentality. And when they cross, you know, you come up with cool things like this.
As the build progresses, Ian attempts to take the tow truck to the next level.
There's nothing like the original stuff, and I like the challenge of putting them together in a convincing way. See you later.
Ian has his own ideas on how this is going to look. I'm a little concerned about it. I like things stock. I don't like them modified too much.
It's little steps like this that can convert a man like that to the creative process. Typical Don scene. He's got pallets of stuff, so I didn't know if we were looking left or right. He points to this one on the left, and it's a bunch of vintage tin work. Looks like it's an old Ford or something. The thing behind the pile of stuff is a C-Cab. It's a really early Ford truck. It's really old, and I think it's cool. So this thing is like 92, 95 years old,
Yes.
something like that? Wow. This thing doesn't even have rust, man.
The cab is basically really straight, no rust, has a lot of potential. As old as it is, it's in pretty darn good shape. I've got the frame for it, got some of the fenders.
Oh, wow.
Yes, this is what started this whole idea.
This whole thing started with Don finding this manual hand crank. It's a tow truck winch. It's dated like 1930 or something.
Well, that winch has been sitting in storage for 33, 34 years now. I always thought it'd be really cool to have a vintage tow truck, basically to move stuff around here on the compound. I don't have a boom for it, so maybe that's where your magic can come in, is putting this stuff together.
Don's missing everything mechanical. He's got a mechanical hand crank winch. He just needs everything else.
Oh, heck, that truck's missing a whole bunch of stuff. It doesn't have a motor, it doesn't have a transmission, it doesn't have a drive shaft, it doesn't have front and rear suspension. I mean, it doesn't have a steering column. It is absolutely a basket case of parts with a whole bunch of parts missing.
If we could find a rolling chassis, then it's like just mount this body on there and, you know, do it kind of hot rod style. Don and I have been working together for such a long time. He's thinking, hey, anything's possible. And it really is, because I know that Don's got the parts. Somewhere in this property, he has everything we need to make this happen. Don's got this 1-ton dually just sitting there. The way I see it is this is a huge upgrade from 1919. This is like 1969, you know, it's like way more developed. This truck is gonna drive like Henry Ford never imagined.
But I think it's a little bit, the cab's too small for this.
I think this could work, man. I don't see why not. I mean, if we have to cut that cab or do something to this frame, it doesn't matter back here, it's a utility bed. It's just that that nose of the cab is so narrow in the front, we might have to do something.
And the frame looks straight. It doesn't look like it's been tweaked or...
I think it's a good start, man. Get this cab out of the way and let's get it inside and lay it out. Even though we got a bunch of cool pieces to work with, it's still just a pile of parts, a cab, and a chassis. As I see it, the task here is gonna be getting all these pieces together and just making one unified truck. This is a big project, but I'm totally ready. Every project has some sort of impetus, the things that get you interested in building. This hand crank did it for me. I think if we build the whole truck to reflect this era, I think we come up with something really cool.
Look at that, just like a glove, Ian. Yeah, I'm a little bit relieved now that we got that cab on that chassis. Ian was talking about we may have to have cut that thing, and I was really reluctant on cutting that. I'm the type of person, I like things simple, I like things stock, I don't like them modified too much.
Once we mocked this thing up, it became clear that this thing was going to be anything but a restoration. We've got parts from like 4 different decades, and there's a lot of space to fill. There's so many different parts here, it could go in a million different directions. It's Don's pile of parts. We're gonna pull out each fender and clip it to the frame, see how it looks, and just kind of come up with a representation of what the truck's gonna be. The main thing I need to build on the rear of the truck is the boom. That's the thing that holds the cable and the winch for towing. This whole thing is gonna be based on like a hook and pulley system. Don's showing me books with a bunch of different materials used.
You know, they have some really bizarre type apparatuses for towing.
Wow, look at that.
Isn't it really cool?
Let's just make a mock-up and we'll figure out how we're gonna build this thing. Just trying to get some kind of a look, a feel of how tall the thing's gonna be, you know, what proportions. The easiest way was just to take a couple 2x4s. Really, the look of it is, you know, it should be proportional to the cab height. We just cut them to size, made a few triangular frames, and just kind of moved them around, saw what it looked like in relation to the height of the roof.
Well, when we first started mocking it up, it just didn't look right.
It just looks like it's got a little thing stuck on the back.
It does. Yeah, standing at this angle, it does. So Ian and I looked at each other and go, this isn't gonna get it. We need to come up with something else.
Like if we did use these 4 members and we went back to the winch.
Yeah, I think that'll work.
I like how the line comes down into the winch. It looks like it's one piece.
Yes.
Maybe we opened this up and created, you know, like that big crane shape. The whole deal is how this truck looks as a whole. And then finally, after moving the pieces around, you just know when you hit the sweet spot. I think we should go with that.
I think this is it.
Now that we got this thing mocked up, I'm ready to move on, really get started on this truck. Once Don and I got the basic structure of the boom figured out, it's time to bring it to life. I'm just building this perimeter frame around the base that's gonna be like a subframe that anchors that winch and also holds the uprights. I got a whole bunch of this C-channel from Industrial Metal Supply. It's 4" by 1.5. It's a 3/16 wall. I'm gonna build each side flat on the table, and I'll stand them up and then tilt them in and join them at the top. This boom needs to be strong, but it's never gonna pick up really heavy stuff. Because it's a hand crank winch with a pulley, it's got a weight limit. The end result will be that this will be a great rig for Don to use around the yard, around the compound. So the fit up here is pretty loose because I'm seeing like a big 1/4" plate coming out and making a nice gradual arc so that the hook is a little bit further out from the back of the truck. Once I got the boom structure on the truck, it's all about tying in the hand crank. I know I'm gonna have to build something off the front of this. I really like the idea of keeping this rustic old angle iron frame. It would be easy to just unbolt the winch and put it on something fresh, but the whole look of the truck is like old-fashioned. I'll just build a little discreet brace underneath to bolt it to, so it'll be just presenting, it'll be out in the open. And then I'll put a cross member under here that'll support the front of that. Even though we're basing this structure on what Don and I mocked up, I still am trying to bring some kind of a design element into it. The winch looks good there. The last thing for me to do is just mock up some kind of an end cap. All the tow trucks we're looking at seem to have this detail at the end where the cable came over and then had a pulley that kind of drooped down. So I'll make an oversized one of these cardboard deals. The big issue I'm having is this negative space with the plate on top. The fix may be to truss it out with some 3/16 flat bar on the outside of this whole thing. Like, come off of that plate and down, and then back, and then back. Once the structure of the boom was in place, I'm just thinking about designs that can crisscross this pattern. It's a pretty weird triangular shape, so I'm just laying out tape in random directions just to get an idea of how the space will be filled. I'm not really sold on this truss idea. I put in 3 cross pieces and felt like it was gonna work. I kept adding to it and it just got out of control. I wanted Don to come in and check it out, just see what he thought.
Wow. That's looking good, Ian.
I'm getting carried away, man.
Got the back hacked off. Yeah.
The problem I'm having is with this tape.
It's a little busy, isn't it?
Act as if that isn't there for now.
Okay. Ian had put a bunch of tape on the structure that we were doing.
The whole reason I was getting carried away with this tape was I had a couple pieces of flat bar, and I loved the fact that if we used that big 1/4" plate you have and put it on the outside and create some kind of a truss structure over the top of this, so it's really dimensional.
I think on that strapping, it was just gonna be way too busy.
I think the way that I build things is just understanding that I don't know what's best. I'm just leaving it open to happen.
But I really like this shape, how it's taking.
I thought by turning the C-channels backwards like that, showing them, it just made it look a little more old-fashioned.
I think you're right. And that's what we want to go with, the older look.
Well, again, with the trussing, maybe we leave it out. I thought it would be really cool to, make it very fancy. I was really trying to make something out of this boom. I was going for the Eiffel Tower, and Don just wanted something way simpler.
I think you nailed it like this. This will work absolutely great like this. I thought he might get a little too carried away on it. It's hard to keep up with Ian. He moves so fast, but I like it the way it is.
There's a ton of different design elements needed to bring this thing together. My process is to stay open to new ideas, and that's just how I work. I'm not sure Don's on the same page. I'm just gonna keep working through this, and Don's gonna go grab more parts. You can see here how this is spreading out so wide. So the wheel will fit inside here, perfect. The cable comes through into the wheel, bolt passes right through here, and the other wheel will be out here. But I'll clamp this in after I get this stuff welded up. The triangle shape of this boom was so irregular in the way that the main support beams came together, I felt that a top cap would just simplify the whole deal. Coming up with the design for this top cap, I thought it was just gonna have one pulley. But I realized that the look of it required two. It seemed like the cable was going to be rubbing on the framework, so by putting two pulleys, it allowed it to come up over the top and then out of the back just a little more smoothly. Seeing the boom and the winch on the truck is awesome. It's really the start of what this vintage truck should look like. Don had this gas tank he was thinking about using. The tank Don showed me is just kind of generic. It looks like something that should be under the bed. This truck's got one lacking area between the bed and the cab, and I think building a custom gas tank is gonna set it off.
Ian has his own ideas on how this is gonna look, and I have my own ideas too, so I'm a little concerned about it.
Move it. Go on. Sorry, Charlie. I've built a lot of different gas tanks over the years, but for this truck, I got a really cool idea for like an old school oval gas tank. Let's see what happens. From the start of my interest in metalworking, I was really trying to build stuff from scratch, you know, by myself. The reason I started using found objects is because there were curved shapes of metal that were way more accessible. So I could get into the actual building of larger components instead of focusing on these small details on curving metal. Back in the day, they were making some cool stuff out of very basic materials, so I built the thing the same way. It's kind of caveman technology, but it works. It's a stamped steel cap. There's a million ways to make a gas tank. This is one. You could just take the metal, tack weld it, roll it around. Instead of doing it that way, I got this slip roller from Woodward. I had been wishing for one of these for years. My plan is to make a full tube out of this sheet metal, smaller than this large radius, and probably right around this radius, hopefully. That way I can just kind of open it up, slide it into place around these two end caps, MIG weld it in place, and then TIG weld it so that it's sealed liquid tight. The next step is the inlet and the outlet. I put this little fitting on the bottom here, and I got this old gas tank. I'm gonna cut the filler neck off and put it on here. I wanted to make this tank and the brackets to hold it look like something you'd see on a vintage work truck. What I'm looking to accomplish here is match this radius with the mellow curve, and then I'm gonna pull it tight over a piece of pipe. That way I'll have more of an egg shape instead of a perfect circle. It just depends what you have to work with, but it was just easier to start from scratch because we had it custom built in proportion to this vehicle. That's what we got, dog.
Ian nailed it with that hand-built fuel tank. That is just so darn cool.
When he saw what I was building and how it was going to add to the look of the truck, he was on board 100%.
It's interesting the way that ties in between the cab and the bed of the truck to have that space taken up by a fuel tank. It looks absolutely perfect and vintage for that vehicle, too.
It's little steps like this that can convert a man like that to the creative process. It's a small victory in this grand war. We're getting in deep. We got mismatched sheet metal from all kinds of things.
I brought Ian another hodgepodge of stuff, sheet metal and old fenders that I want to utilize on this project. I'm not sure how he's going to make it work, but I'm sure he's going to make it work. Well, those fenders are looking slick, though. I have some old running boards over at the shop. I'll bring those over the next time I come on. Maybe we come over, maybe we can utilize them.
Yeah, because I think that's the whole mode with this truck is just all recycled stuff. It's like all the cool parts laying around, just pile them on and make a tow truck. He had 2 quarter panels from an old truck that he found. He had 2 Model A fenders left over from the rear of his hot rod. I think I could widen these fenders and make them fit on a dually rear end on this chassis. There's nothing like the original stuff, and I like the challenge of putting them together in a convincing way. So we got 3 pieces that don't belong together. My mission is to get it right. I'm gonna cut the whole lip off of this inside of the Model A fender. And I'm gonna cut the lip off of this truck bed. Join them together with the sheet metal flange and then position it on the truck. I think that's the easiest way. All right, so that is on. It's already starting to look more utilitarian. It's the whole thing with this truck, is it's gotta look like a work truck. For me, the most straightforward way through this is to just put in the giant panel first. I have a couple detail pieces where this fender detail comes into the bedside, front and rear, the rear being the more challenging one. But at least now there's a big structure holding it all together so I can mock up the bed on the chassis. What I just accomplished was just getting a preliminary setup on these dimensions. Don's parts pile is ever flowing. He brought in these old running boards and who knows where they came from. There's a number of problems. Obviously, we're way short in our reach from the front to the rear. This fender is a similar year to this body. So what they would have is like this little apron, this little splash pan, and the running board would be at this height, which looks pretty cool, especially if you're jumping in and out of the vehicle. But that fender is much lower, which brings the running board way lower. This is where it's really at with this project, taking these mismatched parts and making the side profile of the truck one cohesive line. I gotta nail it. We're at this Truckin' for Kids truck show. We're at Irwindale Speedway, Irwindale, California. Trying to get some inspiration on how these guys are putting these rigs together. Don's truck is a bunch of mismatched parts, and it's really a work vehicle in essence. So coming out here to check out these working trucks that they put a lot of flair into, I just want to check out what's going on. I drive this. And the whole thing is there's so many different variations on the cab to trailer or whatever they're doing for working. You have all your standard cabs, but it's really the fenders and the running boards that make everything link up. Some of the trucks look pieced together, other ones just flow, and that's what I'm trying to do, make them flow. See how they rolled from the cab, they rolled right down into the running board with that diamond plate. And that's kind of what I'm gonna have to do with Don's, is create this curved rocker panel that comes all the way down from the door. This one's much more exaggerated, but that's the same challenge that I'm facing. This whole thing is really about working trucks. So there's a lot of new vehicles out here, but I knew they had a class with older rigs, and that's really what I came to check out, the old stuff. This is kind of the same era as Don's rear fenders, and you can see how they just swoop back so gracefully. I mean, these are the fenders I would put on the truck if we had them. I guess this truck most represents what I'm trying to accomplish. You know, we got these big, wide running boards that are totally functional, and you have a more curvy fender, and this one is obviously a factory part, and they join up perfectly. Coolest thing to see was all the different arrangements of the running boards and fenders. Each truck has its own unique combination depending on the ride height and the fenders used. This truck kind of mimics what Don's got going on. These fenders are just massive and they really tuck the tires in. It's a great look. Makes the whole truck look super low. The whole thing with coming out to this truck show was just to get inspired to finish. It's always a long haul, detailing and getting all the pieces fit up and finished. And really, this is like, you know, these are finished show trucks and it just gives you a lot of inspiration. In order to get these fenders to fit, I had to get an old engine just as a placeholder and install the steering column. I used the steering column out of the '69 cab from the donor chassis. We could replace this '70s styled steering wheel with something more period correct later. So these are the fenders. I made a couple marks and set it up. I measured these fenders up front to rear. The clearances are cool. They're even, they're in place. I'm gonna tack them on. The next challenge is getting these running boards in place. They need a pretty heavy support structure that has to tie into the frame. I like these running boards. It's a really great running board. I'm not disputing that. My concern is the transition from the radius to the front fender detail. So I think I'm gonna end up building off of the running board instead of cutting it back. Yo!
Brought you some more material.
Don shows up with more random scraps. Here he is wheeling in some old diamond plate. Well, you're right on time, man.
Yeah, well, perfect.
Check out what I got.
Hey, those are looking slick. Yeah, it's so cool seeing this old stuff. It's been in stock up against that house for a long time.
Various states of pileage.
Well, if I wasn't such a pack rat, I wouldn't have all this stuff. Now, the wife thinks I'm out of my mind, but...
Well, she's not the only one.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah, I'm a hoarder. Definitely, I collect stuff, I hoard stuff. I don't get rid of anything unless the wife has some say to it, but having Ian to be able to utilize most of this stuff has just been absolutely great. And it might work out for a parade, too.
Don's really happy with the progress on this truck. Still a lot more to do, but I think we're on the same page.
It sure worked out
So
good,
it's the
didn't it?
'69 Chevy steering column. I just shortened it up. We started talking about the rear of the truck. What are you thinking about this rear bumper? Do you have any material or like any guesstimate of what you want to see here? Don said he's got a great bumper, and I think this diamond plate might be just what I need. Don had a ton of this good used diamond plate. We're trying to decide what the finishing elements of all this bodywork was gonna be. And since he's got this stuff and it color matches most of the rest of the truck, I think we're gonna use it. We're gonna put a diamond plate step here, and the other side, there's gonna be a diamond plate detail on the front bumper, and the whole rear of the truck is gonna be diamond plate. So I just built a little bit of extension off of this bedside just to come out past the chassis. There's two tabs under here that'll bolt the bed on. As usual, different ideas are spinning around in my head as to how to tie in this diamond plate with the rest of the body. Trying to put some elements on the side to coincide with the curves of the fender. I want the radius to match the rear of the fender, so I'm using the fender as a guide. My whole process is always use cardboard to mock it up, because it really just helps you visualize it. You could have sketched it out if you had the time. Instead, I just took a piece of an old box and put it on there, and I think it's cool. This is my whole process, and you know what? It's fun. This is the part I enjoy, is figuring stuff out. It's like feeling out the look of the vehicle. Works for me. Lovely. Next, we will cut a simple square cap. There's gonna be a big trailer hitch set up in here that's incorporated with the bumper. I'm not gonna really know how that's gonna happen until I get the trailer hitch from Don. So I'm just gonna tack this rear panel on and take it back off when I need to work on it.
The pipe that I brought in for Ian for this bumper on the back of this tow truck actually came off one of my other trucks.
Don was telling me about this cool truck bumper he had. And he brings it over, it's just a steel pipe with a trailer hitch welded to it. And I think I can make it work. You got your hoarder mentality, and then you got your artist mentality. And when they cross, you know, you come up with cool things like this. That's what I'm talking about, being open to the nuance. You know, an idea becomes a reality through a few different steps. And this is just one example of that. Don wants 2 trailer hitches. He's got one trailer that's heavy duty, it needs to be a little taller. So I just cut a hole in the pipe and added one more. This back bumper was a real pleasure to see finished. I was very satisfied with it. There's a lot of pieces on this truck we still have to connect. We're moving into the eye of the storm. After coming back from the truck show, I started talking with Don about finishing this project as far as paint and bodywork. At first, we were gonna just leave this truck bare metal, but Don saw this Packard I painted. It was black cherry, and he thinks he wants this truck two-tone, black cherry and flat black. I replaced the diamond plate on the side of the bed with a flat sheet. That way the whole bed can be painted one color. I really like the steps on the back side of the bed. That was part of what I was thinking with this diamond plate structure. So bent over a couple pieces of diamond plate, formed them around, and just let them flow into the rear Model A fenders. This is a problem area, the way the fender sloped down. I wanted to connect it to the rear of the bed. Gonna mimic that mirror image to the other side, the driver's side. Weld her up, put her on the road. We got a car to pick up. That'll hold her. Front running board's gonna be a bit of a challenge, but this diamond plate is here. It's used material, it matches the bed. Just gonna try to put a roll in it that will match the radius on that running board. Don really likes the old truck running board he had up front. So to make the diamond plate match, I'm gonna try to get away from this hard welded edge. I'm trying to make it look like this running board is about 20 inches longer, but it changes texture. There's gonna be a rubber element, I'm pretty sure like a tread pad up front where you get into the truck. But back here where it's all utility, I just want it to be super strong and have a radius that matches this front running board. The big missing piece in this whole equation is this area here. Once again, Don's got the parts. We found some side pans from a Model A. See the way it worked on the Model A. Came down below the running board, and then this angle came up into the fender. We run into the same issue with the running board in that it's short coming into the bed. To me, it's gonna be better to make this part. We're trying to tie in the fender, the running board, and the cab. It's just gonna look better if it's scratch built. First thing is to just pull this around. So it's about 90 degrees. See, the sheet metal brake makes a really hard angle. This makes a nice mellow angle. So that was like, you saw 2 seconds of pulling, but it stretched the metal into this really rigid compound curve. It's like a puffed shape. I'm all about trying to just find stuff and modify it so I can use it, but sometimes there's just no other alternative. And that's really where your craftsmanship comes from, is when you can just build from scratch. But the curve indexes just below the body and comes down to the running board. So now I gotta trim this top side to fit roughly, and then I'll measure out my flange to cover those holes, turn it back under like a hem edge, tack welder in. The 20 gauge sheet being super flimsy, you can see by putting these bends in it, it's very strong now, and that's cool. This side panel's gonna work. The real hard part is getting the running board to fit up with the front fender. So that's gonna be a pretty big deal to make that work, fabrication-wise. This truck coming together, we gotta get started on the engine work. Don says he's got a small block Chevy, but of course it's buried out in the yard somewhere, and we gotta go get it. Out here in Don's back 40, he's got stuff piled so deep, you have to call in the big crane to get it out. Don's treasure's down there. So instead of moving all these cars and everything, we're just gonna move the racks. Finally, we're out of the shop, you know? Get away from the truck for a minute. This is a really intense build because it's all business. This engine was looking pretty rough. Don's claiming that this is the buried treasure, and I'll tell you, it was buried. Take her up.
This engine that I've got is a good engine. It's a small block Chevy. I've probably had it about maybe 13, 14 years.
I tell you, Don, this is looking good, man. This is like new old stock. This is a fresh engine. If ever I've seen fresh stuff, this is it. This is great. See you later. So to get out and swing around on the crane for a while, yeah, it helps clear the head.
I'm gonna clean this engine up a little bit, pull off all the unnecessary parts, and ship it back over to Ian, because I know he's got a lot of work to do on it.
We got a brand new transmission from Monster, and so it's really like 90% there. This piece is really subtle. It's a small part, but if I don't get it right, it's gonna be totally noticeable. I'm using the detail on the end of the fender, which is a rod shape, and I'm just gonna make a gradual S curve down into the bottom of the running board and sheet it. You know, it doesn't belong that way, but at least it's gonna match. You know, you'd never see that anywhere else. You really don't grow unless you're, you know, challenged. You know, there's gotta be some pain there, like working out, you know? So even though I'm not able to go out and just do my funky dance, it's like a workout. This thing is just pushing my skills to make something happen. Yeah, to try to create this weird, it's almost like a horn, like a bull horn, right? A section of that, like a steer horn. And to create that really tight curve in one piece of metal would require a huge amount of stretching. So I'm gonna shrink the two insides of each curve and they'll lap over. This is the side profile of the wheel arch going down into the fender. And that's why I chose this method to put it together, because at least it draws a flowing line. The whole idea here is the next piece is gonna come off of this existing fender and just wrap right over it. So there'll be a seam about a ½ inch in. That's why I just curled that edge pretty tight. I've come a long way with this truck, but to me, it's all about the finishing details. If you can pull it off convincing, then it's a real winner. This rod, you can see, comes straight through. It drops down and into the bottom of the running board. And this little flange here just is what it is. It disappears and goes right under. I'm really happy with this. It's one of the main issues I needed to make work, and I think it came out fine.
The way he molded it in and blended it in, I mean, it just looks like it came from the factory.
All right, to start off the front end, I thought the radiator and grill shell would be the best place, start front row and center. We're on to the more enjoyable part of it, which is accessorizing. Don had a couple sections of a Model A rear bumper, so I shot him an idea of using those on the front of this chassis. Our front end design has two side pieces of existing Model A bumpers, so we're ending up with a space in the middle to fill. So Don had these stakes from the garden. Don had these garden stakes. I don't know what he was thinking, but, and you know, I'm always open to nuance, but I don't know if this tent stake is really the right choice. Sometimes when stuff doesn't look right, it just leads you to a better idea. I think we're gonna have to come up with some kind of a center element that just stands on its own, and then it has these two little side flaps. The rear bumper's a big tube, so this obviously is gonna be a mismatch. It's a work truck, so a tube bumper's appropriate in the back. I'm thinking like some kind of a utility front bumper, like you'd see on a work truck, a fire truck or something. I'm gonna cut off the front section of the frame, and I have an idea of a way to make this work. I had this super old school toolbox. It's definitely period correct. So maybe I'm just gonna make a little tray that'll just hold the toolbox there. That's something a tow truck would have, you know? This toolbox came from the guy that taught me almost everything I initially learned with sheet metal work. I was working in roofing in New York City, making gutters, all kinds of decorative copper elements, and this was the dude's toolbox. It's legit. I like little details like this. It gives the project cool elements that have their own story. I got the headlights mounted on their stands, and it's cool too because it really does have a Model A feel. You know, looking at it from here, if you know the front fenders aren't Model A. But the grille, the placement of the headlights, the style of the headlights, and the curved fenders and running board, it's looks a little bit more updated than your 1923 C cab. For the windshield frame, Don had this really neat oval tube. I don't know what it's from, but I think it'll serve our purpose perfectly. On this cab, I have pictures I took from the internet, and it looks like the windshield is about this tall, but it just sits up inside. It's the weirdest thing, because you can see the roof is way wider than the windshield. They were never intended to match. It was more like an air deflect, or it was a wind shield. Just shielded you from the wind, and that's where the term came from. Well, I'm gonna TIG weld all this because it's gonna make a nice little weld bead. Hopefully I won't have to sand or do any detail work to this. It'll just be a nice stainless steel TIG weld. Looks like an old truck. So Don is gonna get the paint and all the final details on this project together. It's almost wrapped. I can't wait to see it finished.
Ian nailed this thing. It's unbelievable. The stuff that I gave him to work with, he knocked it out of the park. I mean, look at that truck. It is just absolutely beautiful.
This one was really getting to me. The mismatch of parts was bothering me to no end.
There's stuff from the 40s, there's stuff from the 30s, there's stuff from the 20s, and then the drivetrain and frame is from the 60s.
The whole challenge here was using the parts that Don wanted. The hand crank was really the impetus behind the whole thing. The truck was styled around that era hand crank, so that's my favorite part of the rig, and really without it, it wouldn't have been this truck at all. It went from a pile of parts on a pallet to an operating tow truck.
Ian had built Patty this electric dune buggy that she can drive around the compound here. She drove it until the batteries were dead, and then we went and picked her up. We put a hook on it and towed it back for her.
The whole thing here was getting Don his fantasy truck. I'm charged up, and Don is stoked. Don added all the final details to really finish out this project. The wooden bed and that giant old school hook really give it that vintage feel.
Working with Ian on this project really opened my mind to a lot of things, and this project came out killer. I mean, it came out way better than I expected it. Don's
totally into this truck. He's got a huge stash of projects, and the possibilities are endless.
Right now on Full Custom Garage, Master Metalman Ian Roussel takes on a wild 1970s Boonie Bug.
I've got this strange vehicle sitting around the shop. Victor comes in with these plans, and I've got the parts to make it happen.
I got a nursery on a major highway in Los Angeles. We need to build some kind of marketing vehicle that we could drive around.
But Ian's eccentric client isn't gonna make it easy.
And then I looked at it, I said, wait, I'm gonna be driving a box around with my sign on it.
I think anything could happen from this point on. It's gotta be a spectacle. There's no rules. I'm totally into this.
As the build progresses, Ian and Victor try to take the project to the next level.
I was thinking of, hey, I'm gonna throw a wrench in the fire on this guy. But Ian outthinks me.
If he wants to push it to the limit, okay, I will. My friend Victor is not the typical car guy. I've built more things for him than I can remember. Everything from custom cars to architectural elements. Nothing for him is ever stock. Victor comes in and he's all charged up. He's got this great idea. He wants to do another project, and it's a little different than what we've done before.
I know you don't use plans, but I even downloaded a set of plans. I want this thing just to be crazy. The other night I was thinking of a project that I need. I got a retail plant rental company. I need for my nursery to have like a little car spectacle, something that, just something like people would see like, what the heck is this thing?
If Victor wants a spectacle, he came to the right place. Yeah, I've seen pictures of this thing. I never knew what the heck it was called. So it's a little utility van, basically. I think the coolest factor about this whole build is it's like a 70s kit car, you know? And this is one of the things I've seen pictures of, but never seen one.
When I brought it to Ian, I knew he would make this thing work.
And they give you all the dimensions
all
and the
dimensions.
specs.
But remember, like everything we do, this means nothing. This means someone has built something like this, so ours cannot be like this.
I think we're gonna take these plans and funkify them. We're gonna go full disco. I think it's gonna be cool.
I don't know what can we use. I don't know what kind of foundation or what is this.
This bus that I have has already been shortened, so it just might work out perfect.
Cool, dude.
See, somebody already cut the whole thing in half. They
That's
shortened
perfect, man. Yeah, no, now I get what you're talking about.
This is a 1968 VW bus.
So, Ian, I got one question. What the heck were you thinking when you bought this thing? What were you gonna do with it?
This isn't mine. This is for another client. He's almost as eccentric as you. So, I mean, this looks like a crazy clown car, but we got plans. My friend Mark brought this down from Canada. He's got a project that I'm building for him, and I'm only using the external sheet metal. So we're using the leftover parts. I'm gonna use the shortened chassis and modify it, and I just think it's really cool that nothing goes to waste.
You're probably gonna have to lengthen it though, right?
I think so. This is too short. The main thing with this chassis is that it's all intact. I'll lengthen it and just come up with a couple dimensions on the body. You come back when I get this thing all chopped apart, and we'll go from there. Let's cut it apart and make it into something better. I think anything could happen from this point on. He's got a set starting point, but who knows where it's going. Well, I'm just gonna cut through and see where it goes. Thank you, that's enough. Go on. See that? It's like slicing a loaf of bread. same concept, only bigger. This isn't like a Beetle. This thing is heavy. It's obviously had the commercial vehicle in mind when they made this. It's some heavy metal. That must be why it was so hard to cut. You can tell this baby's got a lot of miles on it, but it's still ready for the road. It's our new flexible chassis design. It smooths out the bumps. This thing's ready to rock, baby. Fire it up. It's an old Volkswagen. I don't know what's going on. It rolls around, but it's easy to fix. That's the whole thing. The thing that's bugging me now is these snow tires. Picked out these tires and rims because they got that kind of old school look with the white letters. This is essential because, you know, you can start drawing your lines of what it's going to look like around the final tire diameter and width. So obviously it's looking like some kind of weird contraption. Put a little something on it. Get us in the direction we're going. This bus was driving around on snow tires and some weird worn out radials. So putting some kind of a custom rim and the low profile tires really adds to it. It's the typical hot rod formula. You know, change the rim and tire combo and it's a whole different ride. That's way better. And then I'm gonna cut the chassis and stretch it, figure out the wheelbase. But it's a good first day. I'll get this thing set up, talk to Victor when he gets back here. I think first things first, I've been looking at these plans and just trying to come up with a starting point. The cool factor in this is that I'm actually building the body from scratch. It's a super simple design, but I haven't done this yet. And that's really the thing. Looking at the way this thing is constructed, it was built out of panels of foam and then fiberglassed. But my idea is to build a perimeter frame like a skeleton out of 1-inch square tube. It's gonna be way easier for me to just frame this thing out. It'll look kind of like a bird cage, and then I'll skin it with aluminum sheet. The whole idea with this frame is that I can really gauge three-dimensionally what the rake is on these tires, how this looks side to side. That way it looks centered on the chassis. Once I have the wheelbase established, it's all about the roof height, the overall length of the thing, and most importantly to me is the angle of the roof and the angle of the windshield. This tube will represent the roof height. See where we're at. See, that gives it a definite rake. First order of business was definitely the look of a chop top. So the idea of the tail end being way high and the nose being pushed down, it's just, you know, that's the look. It already looks like a spaceship. It's a total moon buggy. I think I'm going in the right direction. You know, some kind of sci-fi cartoon, extraterrestrial vehicle. It's got that funky disco vibe. Those are the parameters. I used the engine hoist in the back, so I'll be able to raise and lower the rear roof height without having all that clutter inside. If I was building something right to the plan, I would be measuring. I'm trying to use the plan as just a baseline model and then mutate it from there. This is like drawing in three-dimensional. You know, if you had a CAD program and took it back to the Stone Age, that's what this is. You're out in the desert, thinking about weird stuff, on a lunar landscape. You got the vehicle for it. So it's really not about measuring, it's just about checking it out. So I think the whole layout of this body looks great. I'm committing to this framework with the 1-inch square tube. The wheelbase has got to be lengthened, so I'm going to stretch out the chassis and to go forward from there. It's a unibody, so the whole body is a tube structure that supports itself, but as soon as you remove that other 3 sides of the tube, you only have the bottom leg, and it's just a springboard. So my idea is to just beef the whole thing up. Instead of a 1x3 rectangle tube, I'm gonna put a 4x4 square tube that's gonna go over both of these frame rails. It's gonna hide the mismatch in the dimensions, and it'll be super strong. Hey, look, Ma, no chassis flex. It's like a real frame. Now the suspension works instead of the thing buckling in the center. The projects I recently accomplished with Victor were like all out, just go for it. And he was on board, so I'm really just trying to do something that kind of makes him stutter a little. Make him rethink that crazy potential that I have to offer. If he wants to push it to the limit, okay, I will. This chassis is really coming along. The only thing I'm missing is the engine. My friend Larry's got a pretty hopped up dual carb VW engine. It's not just gonna be like a rolly cart, you know, it's a display. This thing's gonna pop wheelies, it's gonna do burnouts, it's gonna sound badass. Now that I got this thing pretty well along, I'm gonna go over to Victor's nursery and check out what's going on over there. I got a couple ideas that'll put this thing over the top. I don't really want to tell Victor what they are, I just want to see what he's gonna use it for. The whole deal here is there's a huge freeway adjacent to his property. So there's a gazillion amount of people that travel this corridor every day to and from work. The cool factor about Victor's setup here is he's always looking to get people to look, right? We built these crazy sculptures, oddball furniture, this wild dinosaur thing. What this car is gonna be, it follows suit with all those other projects. This is only 6 feet tall, and it's clear as day coming down the freeway. So if we get something more like that, maybe 8, 10 feet up.
8, 10 feet would be perfect.
Instead of just creating like another sore thumb type of scenario, I think I can make something really cool. All of Victor's work trucks are like high-end paint jobs, super nice stuff. He's a car guy. I think this vehicle should fall right in line with what he's got going on. Something a little more special than just your regular work truck with a sign on it, right? Spending a little time here, it's got my plan cemented. I gotta get back to the shop and make this thing happen. My whole idea with this project is to make the car look twice its size. I think the plan is to make the sides fold all the way up, and both walls will be signage. It'll be 10 feet tall, 6 feet, 7 feet long. I want the rear to hatch up, and I want both of the sides to hatch up. And I'm just gonna use this 6-foot piano hinge as the dimension for the side door. I'm thinking signs inside and out. That way, if you're driving around, it's obviously shut, showing off this cool paint job with a logo, but when you open up the doors, it's a giant billboard, straight up. That swings all the way up. And that becomes an area for a sign, too. It's like a sign. Now I'm gonna build out these 2 walls that will swing out. The whole thing with this vehicle is like a triple threat, right? It's driving around, it's looking so cool. When it's parked, it's doing the same thing. And then the sides fold up, and it still drives around. So it's a quadruple threat. It does 4 things really good. This should flip all the way open. Aha! Yeah, and it bends up, just like the back. So the thing that's distracting me is this is just a structure. This is all sheeted. The window's gonna be back here. So I'm gonna bend up some square tube, put in the window frame. I'm not making anything from other car parts. That's the typical formula. So it's really open for interpretation. Butt it right up against there. The reason I made it out of this square tube is because it's all the same material, but it's also a bit of bracing. I'm gonna tag off a leg to that rear corner, and that'll help keep this door squared up through the most severe terrain. The whole thing is that it looks like it's moving, you know? You see a dancer and they're doing their thing, you take a still photo of them, they look kind of weird, not like a typical person standing there. And that's exactly what this thing's supposed to look like. I'm just gonna kick this back to here, and that'll be a support piece. The aluminum's gonna need something in the center. I'm not sure how I'm gonna rigidize that yet. I'm really starting to dig this thing. So far, it's kind of my wish list. Wing-a-dings, open. And then it's like ultra green, just like right here. Whoosh. I know Victor's mode, and I'm hoping he doesn't come in here and switch up the bill. I really like where it's going, but knowing him, it could just take a whole new direction. Gonna be a roof rack up here, platform, so I want it to be strong. So I put in cross braces every foot. Everything that I'm doing with this is blank canvas for Victor. I'm thinking there's gonna be something on the roof. I'm making it strong, a little rack, support the doors, and whatever he puts on top. I think the last thing I need to do before I show it to Victor is create this roof rack frame. The whole deal with this roof structure is to be strong. Victor has a track record of pulling off some stuff, and I want to make sure this thing holds together. The whole deal with working with this square tube is that I have a bender for it, it's lightweight, and I can move quickly. This is just going to be on little legs that'll hold it down. It's just a matter of, again, proportion. How tall should it be? This ring is just like a top surround that you could strap things off to should you need it. They'll have 10 stands with 2 little rails supporting it. And that's the story. Victor's on his way over, and I just want to show him one more thing as like first concept, and that's the front bumper. Reminds me of my days as a shepherd back in the Nom. Just gonna cut off these 2 ends, fuse them together.
Hey Ian, what's up? When I first walked in, as usual, more was done than I expected. I love the way you angle that thing. I've been thinking and dreaming about this too since I left. I said, I want to put, you know, kick the angle down. I didn't know it was going to be forward or backward, but you're reading my mind.
Instead of the doors like the plan showed, the whole wall is open like that, both of them.
That's
and then
amazing,
it says
yeah.
ultra green. So when you park it, that's a sign.
I was thinking of, hey, I'm going to throw a wrench in the fire on this guy. I'm going to have him make something raise up because I want my sign to show. And I come in and you raise up the door and my signs go there so the guy like outthinks me.
This was exactly the response I was hoping for. He was really charged up about it, and that's why I needed to get this thing to a full frame skeleton. You got the whole concept, there's nothing to question. I got a dual carbed 1776 hot rod motor from my buddy. This rear opens too, so you can get in here and throw whatever you want. So this all comes up.
Yeah, no.
So this is how it looks. It's open. There's just 4 pillars.
And people could see it from farther away. But yeah, no, that came out crazy, yeah. Looking at it, everything flows right on. How's this gonna look with the windshield? Is this gonna be too squarish? We talked about a few things, changing a few things, just round this a little. Change the window around, round off a couple corners. This maybe might have to kick forward a little.
Victor's like quality control. He picks out the sore spot and remedies it. So I'm all on board. He says curve the front end, and I agree with it.
Then it's a built-in little visor, and you got a visor already built in.
The main thing I got today was the go signal. Victor came up with a great recommendation on fixing the roof line in the front, and that's it. There was no other improvements. I'm gonna cut this pillar off and reposition it. It'll come back like this, and this will have a nice curve. It's identical to the roof rack. Use this 1/2x1, so I'll have the same side profile, but I'll be able to jive this up at an angle that will splice in there. And I may even take this and curve it, because this is gonna be like a curved panel, so it's like a little privacy shield, you know, like blinders on a horse. It's pretty spacey. I think this is gonna work. This is actually gonna taper that thing in a little bit more, so it will have this little curved front to it, but this wall is going to curve in, and I think that works. It's gonna come right around the corner like that. No hard breaks in it. Working with Victor, he's got a great sense of style. This window detail is a perfect example of that. I wasn't seeing what he was, but I think Victor made a good call. see that this looks great. There's like a very smooth surface if you're looking at the light reflections, and that's what I'm gonna try to maintain through the whole thing. Up till now, this thing's been a skeleton, right? Just conceptual. I had a couple pieces of cardboard on it. Finally getting these aluminum panels in place, you see it. Three-dimensional thing. It's an object d'art. The whole concept here is simplicity. If I can just lay this on and it looks decent, we're done. I think this is gonna work. Close the door. It's not gonna shut all the way because I still gotta finish the bottom edges. But the whole idea is to get this thing looking like a space shuttle. It's very thin. I'm screwing it down, which is putting little pressure points all around each fastener. The idea of a mirror straight body finish is no warpage, right? So I'm trying to figure out how to keep this material under control. Once I got one door skin put on, I knew this material was gonna work. I had to figure that out. The biggest challenge was in the nose. There was a lot more bent panels up front than there were on the sides and rear. The steel's gonna be showing all through here, but 2 aluminum panels are gonna meet on these corners. So I gotta come up with a pretty clean design. The nose of that is going to be created in one piece, and that's a series of a number of bends. It's going to come out of the windshield frame, turn down. It's 1 inch out, 1 inch down, 24 inches pitching forward, 8 inches down, and then 1 inch back. So this thing should snap into place once the sides are trimmed out. So now I can mark where it's gonna fit inside this upright. By bending one panel up, it just gives the nose a nice smooth look. Trying to minimize the amount of exposed seams, no lapped over joints. Then I'll just finish the edges out. I like everything about this. These look a little cheeky to me. Looks a little like The Godfather. That's the only problem I'm having with it. That round bumper and those little jowls. But all in all, this is what I was looking to build. Just in time for Halloween. It's gonna be great. I always got a bunch of stuff going on. A while back, I worked on this project with my friend Stone. He called me. He wants me to come by and help him set it up for a show he's got coming up.
My name is Stone, and I am a metal fabricator and sculptor, and I build big, ridiculous things for festivals.
The initial concept is a series of sculptures that Stone did. It's called the One-Eyed Monster.
You know, the original state of the One-Eyed Monster was these small little sculptures that I used to hand make out of steel, and they were just little sculptures that I just kept showing in galleries.
He says to me he wants to build the most gigantic one-eyed monster sculpture ever, a driving 30-foot tall sculpture.
Because I'm gonna tell you right now, I know Ian and I know myself, like if there's any kind of thought in our head and it was like, oh, that would be cool, literally the next morning we will be not drawing it out, we will start building it.
So this is below the decks of the One-Eyed Monster, where all the mechanics and engine maintenance guys hang out. This thing's a full mutant. It's a 28 Ford Model A frame that I put a Mercedes-Benz rear clip, independent rear suspension, with the engine and transmission, and then it has a Chevy truck front axle.
One of the biggest, craziest reactions that I get, besides what it is, I mean, it's obviously like, wow, what is that? That's weird. But when you tell them that it's an actual car, or you don't even tell them nothing, you just get up in it, you start it, and you start driving through a crowd, and they're like, what the, you know, and you're like, exactly.
All the Stone sculptures are like a spherical body, and to make it proportional to what he wanted to do, we had to build like a 16 or 18-foot diameter sphere. It's all aluminum flat bar rolled on edge to create a series of like pie pieces that form this huge sphere.
Ian's part, like one of his big parts, is like more of the stuff that you don't really, I mean, you see it, but it's inside the car. And that's transferring all of the controls from, you know, a 4-foot range up to 14 feet in the air and actually make it functional.
You drive it kind of pirate ship style. It's this huge A-frame, you're 15 feet off the ground, so all the controls and the steering are upstairs. So we made 2 lenses for the eyeball in the same way I was doing the bubble tops and taillights on the other projects. For these, I just made a round oven. We used the same barbecue style thing and just blew these circular ones as to Stone's specs. You know, he knew what diameter of the eyeball was gonna be, and we just made a ring and a backing plate and inflated them.
It is actually kind of complicated because it's colored, but it's translucent. You know, you don't want to paint something because during the day it might look great, right? But at night, that will not look that great 35 feet in the air. You need to light it from behind. So even though this looks like it's all painted, it's actually totally translucent. So any light will penetrate any of this paint. We created our eye socket out of like stuff that we just made here in the shop.
Putting this thing together is a lot of effort. It's a full day setup, but the real reward is the sun sets, you get up in the cab and you're cruising around. I mean, just that, it's a really cool vehicle. It's totally fun.
It's worked out perfect. It's exactly what it needs to be, and that's the spectacle of this crazy thing that no one else has ever seen.
He's got the 30-foot one-eyed monster car, and I helped build it. My whole mission with Stone was to help him realize his vision, and it's the same thing with Victor. I set up all the puzzle pieces for him to bring it all together and make his vision come to reality. I'm really happy with the way this van is shaping up. Last couple things to wrap up before Victor gets here is a few minor details. I set up these wheel arches and rocker panels all in steel. And the last thing is to just clearance them out so that it steers. I want a really tucked look on these tires, but I don't want them to rub. It hits the bump stop just as it hits the tire. So I'm gonna finish up the wheel arch with this 3/16 round rod. That's what these grooves in the rollers are for, different size wires. You just crank it through and it makes a perfect even curve. So that's pretty much the story. I'll just do that to each fender well. And instead of having this flimsy metal with a sharp edge, now you have a nice rigid thing with a radius in it. But enough of the work. I want to get into the fun stuff. I cut up a bunch of pieces of wood flooring. It's going to be a simple plywood floor and gas tank cover. The idea is this is removable, so all the mechanical stuff is easily accessed. You can get to everything. The thing about Victor is I know he's gonna wanna go wild on this thing. I just, you know, I've been around him long enough. I know when his brain is thinking. And giving it to him in this raw condition, I think will leave a lot open for opportunity. If it's up at his place and he's looking at it every afternoon when he comes back from work, I think it's gonna progress into a way more developed state than if he's coming here with requests. This is more than a simple art piece. It's more than a simple stage prop. It's an actual driving boonie bug. So it's gotta steer, it's gotta go, it's gotta stop. 5 years old, all over again. This is perfect. One more thing, let's put together a seat. So this is the stock driver's seat from the bus. And this base is just way too tall. This is gonna be more like a motorcycle seat where it's just a thin pad. You know, you're not hippieing out across the country with this thing. What this has done is give me one piece to fit up in the van instead of having a whole assemblage of tack welds and everything else. It's a bunch of square tube. I'm gonna spin it up into the shape of a seat and put some wood on it. That's what I'm thinking. Sort of like that. That's what I was talking about. Looks good, super strong, super simple. What do you think, Hellhound? You on board? Huh? What do you think? Look into my eyes. The whole idea with these wood inserts is they'll be easy to upholster. You'll see the metal frame, it'll be painted, and then these wooden pieces will just pop into place with foam and fabric on them. The idea is when you get in the vehicle, you can see it's pretty comfy. Somebody's a little shorter than me, their knee can be anywhere in here. There's headroom. It's actually pretty cozy. See, in this seat, it's exactly what I imagined. I'm really happy with it. I think it's a keeper. So my next order of business is to get the rest of these body skins at least, if not permanently installed, at least very mocked up so that it looks like a box, and then hook up the controls and drive it. Hey man, just finishing up the last bit of this stuff. Good to see you. I fleshed out the interior with wood, made a seat. All the controls are hooked up.
Yeah, no, that's perfect, and it looks like it's really comfortable too.
Yeah.
And it adds to the flow. There again, everything's flowing just the way I like it.
Packard came in and checked out the seat I made, right on the money. He didn't have anything to say except yes. Now you can see the way I fit in it. There's headroom for me.
Yeah, no.
You're laying back and it's just enough. I got the steering all figured out, the clutch works.
Yeah, that thing's gonna be a trip. It'll do wheelies, right? For a one-man operation, what this guy does, I come in every couple days and it's holy. This guy must not sleep because he did 3 weeks worth of work on this thing in a couple days. That bitchin' in front, I love that. Now, practicality. I mean, you know, we're gonna use this, go with the theme of the 70s, and we're gonna use like the shag carpet now. Maybe what are we doing? Maybe some kind of ice chest or some kind of maybe other seating or maybe fishbowl, who knows? I mean, what the hell?
This whole thing started as like a utility cart with some signage. And Victor is really excited about my design, and he's wanting to take it next level. Everybody's gonna look at it, man. I put it out in the parking lot just to see, and yeah, it's a total eye catcher. You know, it's one thing standing 5 feet away, but from the other end of the parking lot, it looks like a little space shuttle sitting there.
Well, that, and then
weird.
Once we throw these crazy colors on here and these lines, I mean, we have to, I'm talking 70s, man. I'll get you some bell bottoms, and then we'll be back at it.
I'll just put 10 million screws in this thing, start it up, and I'll bring it over to your place. Probably be 2 days.
All right, let me know, and I'm ready for you. My boys are ready.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a good one. Larry says the engine's a turnkey runner, so I just kind of did my little thing, made sure the carburetor linkage was free, the fuel pump was doing its job with the fuel, and just kind of checked the oil and made sure it was ready to rock. I'd like to take one moment to thank you, Mr. Larry. It's a great engine. But yeah, it's a turnkey motor, just like he said. Before delivery, Victor requested that I put a rear bumper on it. This thing is going to Victor's for all the finished bodywork and paint. He set up a punch list for me. He wanted a dashboard, a rear bumper with a trailer hitch, put an exhaust on it, and just finish up the paneling and headlights. And I guess he's got some kind of garden carts that they'll pull around with this, so he asked for a simple trailer hitch. Doesn't have to be super duty. I just set up that crossbar that hits the old, well, what you'd consider the frame. And the whole thing with this cage is I'm not welding the engine in. See, it's got little sleeves, so these are welded in, and then there's a bolt that holds the whole thing together. That looks perfect. Well, you might remember my friend Bill's famous scrap pile. So I found this chunk of steel. It just had a giant hole drilled in it that fit the trailer hitch. It's easier to cut this thing off, believe it or not, than to drill a new hole through this heavy material. It's like you're at the store, they have those little racks for the impulse buyers. Bill's whole backyard is like that for me. When I welded this big old plate on there, it looked terrible. The whole idea is making it look cool, right? Little weld, little plasma cut, it's a winner. Custom trailer hitch. Once I put the headlights in, you could see, you know, it had the face, it's a happy car. These are like early Volkswagen bus and bug headlights. That was the whole thing. It was a VW kit car. I just like Volkswagens. I could work on a million Thunderbirds and it's like, see ya. You know, everybody's got their thing. This is a hand-built Volkswagen-powered toy car. I mean, it's beach buggy, and that's cool. That's what gives it the character, man. Look at that, that's a happy car. It's like, Victor loves a project in this stage of finish. It's a blank canvas to him. You know, I was really concerned with the actual fleshing out of it, the building, and now it's time to get down and finish it up. All the interior details and then the paint. In an emergency, you will be warned. This van is going to be sitting around outside year-round. It's not going to be garage kept, so the air filters are directly exposed. Need something to keep whatever water out of the carburetors. Came up with a simple design to cover the top. It looks kind of like a little race car wing. Shrouds the side of the engines. You know, if you're driving by sprinklers, for instance, it's not going to go down the engine and ruin it. I guess the whole thing about this is it's a handmade piece of art, you know? Everybody's gonna dig it. Little kids, old ladies. It just looks like a giant toy car. It's gonna get a ton of attention. It's gonna make people smile. Victor's got his guys going for it. I guess he's got the buggy painted and he wants me to come over and check it out. Just like any custom paint job, this thing's all taped off. I guess he's done a lot of line work and everything. I can't wait to see it. It looks like it's totally 70s style.
Remember I told you we're gonna do this big old marketing thing. As I looked, I said it's gonna be marketing tool, but it's still gotta be cool. I started looking at it and then I was thinking 70s. In the core, I went beyond of what I needed to do for being a nursery golf cart / marketing tool. I took it to the limit of what it was. Instead of being just a square box, I said, wait a minute. I need to throw some lines in here. It needs to sparkle. It needs to be cool. You know, everything we build gotta be one off, one of a kind, and over the top.
You got 3 colors, silver, gold, green.
We're still gonna put a clear coat on it, and inside the clear coat, we could add shades of pearl or metallic.
Victor was talking about some kind of panel paint job, you know, something 70s inspired. So as we start peeling back the tape and the paper, he's obviously had somebody who knows what they're doing lay this thing out. It's a pretty intense graphic, and I'm digging it.
And I had my buddy, Bob Kozlick, an awesome pinstriper. He came in, I gave him some thoughts, and he ran wild on this thing.
The only thing I'm wondering is, paint looks so good with patterns, where's the sign gonna go?
Just like you do to me, I have you do something, you change it up on me, I'm doing the same to you.
We're just peeling tape, peeling back paper, looking at it, and we unwrap it, there's no signage. I thought we were making a custom sign, and all I see is these wild line graphics.
I was thinking about that, and I was waiting for you to ask. Remember, the doors open up and the sign is there, but I had a brainstorm where, you know, the buggies have this whip with a big old sign on it. So it's something that when you're driving, the sign's moving, and I could go up 5 foot, 10 foot, 20 foot.
This project started as an advertising scheme, and he's ended up with this crazy dune buggy van thing.
I still wanted a sign, but I needed the car or the vehicle or it to be cool. The it has this flag with my nursery ultra greens on it, and people are gonna go, what is it, you know?
Right, sure.
And I just say it's just a knit.
This thing is kind of an off-road vehicle at heart, and I think the idea of this flag banner thing is great. If you're out at the dunes, you're required to have a flag, and hey, it's representing the company. That's pretty cool.
Not only do they look to see the sign, they look to see this cool-looking vehicle and say, well, what is it? Well, it's a knit.
I don't know what Victor's talking about. I don't know what it is. This thing's a Boony bug for 2014. I'm totally on board with it. He's got a great idea for this sign. Now it's time to just do the finished details. So to wrap it up, it's a typical process for Victor. He's got his interior guy, Lino. He's done all his projects. The guy's an ace, and I think he's gonna be the guy that takes the interior over the top.
Then I said, okay, this is natural. This is a golf cart. This is a nursery car. We need indoor-outdoor carpeting. So I said, hey, Lino, can you put this as carpeting? And he goes, well, yeah, he can.
I think working with this AstroTurf might be new realms for Lino's career here. I guess Victor still is on the whole ultra greens kick. I mean, he wants this to be representing the business, so he's got like AstroTurf inside, still carrying the green metal flake theme inside with vinyl. All the elements are in place, and I can't wait to see what happens. From the onset, I knew we were building something with 4 wheels and an engine, and he just took it to the next level, typical Victor style.
We had no idea what this thing was gonna come out to be. It's beyond my expectations. It's not a show car. The little nursery car took it to the next level. This thing gonna be all dirty and in the mud.
He lucked out with this engine. This thing rips. Everything has held together great. It runs great. I almost wish I didn't have to give it up. I was really getting attached to this thing. Being able to drive it on its inaugural run was really cool. Performed perfect. I think Victor's gonna take this thing more places than the nursery. So in addition to the paint, Victor went all out on the interior. He's got custom vinyl interior, two-tone, special seat, gold and green. He's got a custom steering wheel. They put AstroTurf inside instead of carpeting. I mean, this thing's looking good. It's buffed, polished, sign is on. This thing is a rockin', it's great. Our first idea was like some kind of a wagon with a billboard on it.
But you know what? I got signs everywhere. But the car itself is gonna make the statement. And we just added the signs on, and you could take them off.
It really shows that Victor's idea was a good call in the end. This thing holds its own just sitting there in the parking lot. It's got the same colors as his fleet, fits right in with all of Victor's work trucks.
The reason why me and Ian hit it off so good is he's creative, and we're just started.
If this was just a small project, then he's up in his game and he's looking to build something incredible. I can't wait to see what's next.